1. The story begins with our heroine holding a letter in her hands and thinking about what if Rix refuses. The more she thought about it, the more she doubted that the girl might be a burden to everyone, but that was no reason to sell her. A couple of days ago, she couldn't sleep, and she went out for a little walk, and on the way, she heard someone's voices and wondered who was out on the street at such an hour. An unknown man in a hood handed over a bag of gold to Father Mateo. This money would be enough even to buy a house. The man asked if Isabel was really that valuable. Why would they need a homeless girl living off the temple? The stranger replied that she was worth it, after which he added that the Duke of Cardiego was very interested in her. Our heroine became frightened. They will take her the day after tomorrow, while the sisters are not in the temple. Until then, it is necessary to be careful and not attract unnecessary attention. Mateo replied that the girl was indeed attractive. Silver hair, blue eyes. Her sister Maria was in charge of her upbringing, and besides, she was still innocent. The girl knew that her father hated her. She was not a saint, but this was no reason to sell, as if she herself liked to stay in this place. The Duke is an eccentric tyrant who always hides behind a mask. It is said that he suffers from impotence, which is why he goes crazy and kills his mistresses to keep it a secret. Isabel had no intention of becoming his victim, and after the first night, Mateo had already taken the money. If she runs away, her sister will probably be angry, but a woman must understand that her life is more important. No matter how much she thought about it, she saw no other way out. It was necessary to make Cardiego lose interest in her. While the girl was wandering back and forth and thinking about what she could come up with to make him refuse, a guy appeared and asked if she was up to something again. Isabel was very glad to see him, since only next to her childhood friend could she feel safe. He was 100 times better than any frivolous men. After some time, our heroine told him everything she had learned. The young man asked if she wanted to say that the Duke had decided to buy her. She replied that no one of his people. It seems they secretly select girls for him. Father Mateo agreed to give her away and took the money. If Sister Maria had been there, she would not have allowed this to happen. After which, she took the young man by the hand and said that this was precisely why they needed to get married. While Rix looked at her in bewilderment, Isabel added that he probably only needed an innocent girl, but if she got married, everyone would decide that she was already unclean. This is exactly what she needs. The young man muttered that she was really ready to marry him, just to avoid being with the Duke. Our heroine replied that she understood that this was all too sudden, but she had spent the whole night drawing up a marriage contract, and she was sure that he would like it. The guy started reading that he should just be a good husband, and she would wash, clean, and cook until the divorce. After which he asked what was in his favor, since his girlfriend couldn't cook or wash or do anything at all. Our heroine had tears in her eyes and asked what else she could do. The young man replied that she had read so many books about love at first sight and had not even seen this Duke. Perhaps he was not such a bad person. The girl said that the problem is not whether he is good or bad. Cardiego suffers from impotence. Everyone says that why else does the future emperor have problems with women? Everything else is in perfect order. With such a fate, anyone would become a tyrant. The young man replied that he understood everything and asked when he should give an answer. Our heroine said tomorrow she couldn't stand a refusal, then handed over her necklace and said that it was a wedding gift. When his girlfriend quickly ran away, the guy decided that he first needed to find out what kind of bad person had set his sights on Isabel. It is said that the people-loving goddess Aida bestowed her power on 3 families. The power of heaven and prediction of the future went to the Riesland dynasty. The power of the earth and the magic of the 4 elements were passed on to the Wilsberg family. The Cardiego clan gained the power of the underworld control over death and ghosts. The entire empire is divided between these families. The emperor is chosen from among them. Thanks to this, each region has its own unique flavor. Our heroine lives in a special temple, which is the only one from Wilsberg on the territory of Duke Cardiego. She had heard a lot about this guy since childhood, the heir of the family who inherited the power of the underworld at the age of 7, the strongest candidate for the throne. But things don't work out for him with women, and now she is destined to die at his hands. Isabel is constantly asking her friend for something, but at the moment it is a matter of life and death. In fact, it's too early to worry. It's better not to think about the bad, but to think positively. Silver hair, blue eyes. This is a sign that the goddess Aida has bestowed her love. Therefore, she is loved by both the temple servants and followers. It would definitely not be shameful to take such a woman as a wife. Her peers blush just by looking at her. Rix is simply obliged to agree to the proposal, after which she suddenly wondered whether he had ever been embarrassed at the sight of her, whether he had looked away, even when she wanted black hair and cut off a bunch of it from him. He went through a year with a bald head, and his facial expression did not change at all. 13 years ago, our heroine pulled her sister by the hand and said that today was a festival. For the first time in 7 years, there would be a solar eclipse. This is the most important holiday of the Cardiego family. Today, the Duke will return from the capital, so the festival is even more special. She will not even beg for sweets if it is possible to at least catch a glimpse of the fireworks. The woman wanted to answer something, but the little girl interrupted her and added that this was the perfect moment to understand the will of the goddess Aida. It was worth at least trying. Maria took the baby in her arms and said that the idea was simply wonderful, but most of the inhabitants of these lands did not want to see the people of the Vilsburg Temple at the celebration. After which she put our heroine to bed and told her to go to bed early today. The girl still couldn't calm down because she really wanted to see the fireworks take off and explode in the sky. Then I thought that if you make a wish when a star falls, it will definitely come true. Village children go with their parents to look at him and make a wish. The little girl would also like to go to the festival with someone her sisters walk with her, but they can't take her to the holiday. Everything would be different if she had a family. After which, she mentally turned to the goddess Aida and began to ask her to save her from loneliness. Suddenly she heard some noise, and looking out the window she saw a small child, but it was unclear where he came from. That's why I decided to run to meet him. Maybe something happened to his parents. They need to call him to the temple, give him hot tea, and wake up the sisters so they can examine him and give him medicine while they look for his parents. Suddenly, Isabel remembered the story of how Cecilia once saved a fawn, and he found an expensive mushroom for her. When he grew up, she sold him and bought her a bunch of sweets. Therefore, she decided that this girl was her personal fawn. Then she began to ask what her name was then, to tell her that she was 6 years old and lived in the temple, how the little girl ended up here, and whether she was injured. When there was no answer, the little girl exclaimed that she had never met such silent girls. Her sisters also talk little, but not so much. The baby screamed that he was not a girl. Where did she even see one here? Isabel was surprised that boys could be so beautiful. Then the girl began asking what her name was, and trying to guess by listing various female names. The little boy shouted that his name was Rix, and asked how he could be so stupid at 6 years old. The girl in response asked why he was so rude. She actually ran out at night to help him, after which she laughed and thought about how grumpy and touchy he is. The new acquaintance was shaking all over, and his whole body was covered in bruises and abrasions. It would be nice to take him to the temple, but he doesn't seem to want to go with her. Then she decided that first she needed to win him over and began asking where he was from, how old he was since he looked younger than her. But again, there was no answer. But Isabel was not going to give up and continued asking questions about where his parents were, whether they allowed him to walk alone at night. Unexpectedly, the boy replied that she should finally shut up because his parents had died. The girl replied that she was also an orphan. Her family abandoned her in childhood. Then she added that since they are so similar, then maybe they should be friends. What does he think about this? Rick stated that she was very strange. Was she really happy that her parents abandoned her? The little girl replied that no, it was just great to find a friend. At first, he didn't even pay attention to her, but now they're already talking. When our heroine asked how he ended up in this place, since the village is far from the temple, the baby replied that he ran away. Suddenly, they heard some noise and saw knights who were looking for someone and said that he seemed to have evaporated because of the paralyzing poison. He should not run far. Isabel noted to herself that these men were somehow strange and did not look like village guards. Then she noticed that the boy was very afraid of them. But this is not surprising since they waved their spears in different directions. After which she took his hand and said that everything would be fine. She would definitely protect him. Not long ago, Sister Maria gave her a pendant and said that it was very important to her, but she wanted to give it to her. Just let the girl promise her something. You should never use magic. But this is for the sake of a friend and not for fun. A woman should understand her. After which, she used her magical abilities, and the men shouted that they heard some sound, so they needed to go there. When the boy asked what she had just done, The little girl explained that she had changed the direction of the wind using magic. Isabel doesn't quite understand how she does it, but she's just always been able to do it. Then she asked if Rix was by any chance a stage actor. I thought to myself that a fashionable suit, a pretty face, plus they are looking for him too hard, so there is no other option. The boy asked why she decided to help him because it was very dangerous. The little girl replied that they are friends. Her sister says that they need to be loved. For example, they can hug. When the little one said that no one had ever hugged him, the girl jumped up and exclaimed that he was a child. Let him come to her. After which she suddenly pulled her new friend towards her and began to hug him tightly. After some time, the girl was returning to her room. Suddenly Maria's voice was heard behind her, asking where she had disappeared. The woman was so scared when she saw the empty bed. The sister heard that there were some problems with the Duke's procession, so she was very worried whether she had gone to the village. The little one answered that no, she had been walking near the temple, after which she began to tell about what had happened to her. The woman said that she was a good girl for helping him. Perhaps it was worth inviting her friend to the temple, but the little girl replied that he didn't want to, so she wanted to bring him some hot tea and bread. Maria muttered that, okay, the Duke's people don't really like this place. When the woman saw the boy, she became very scared for some reason, and dropped the soup from her hands onto the ground. The girl exclaimed that she felt very sorry for him, as he was incredibly tasty. The little one asked Isabel to hug him one more time, and then he would go home. This was the first time Rix called her by name. The little girl immediately hugged him tightly and told him to come visit so they could play together and let him promise that he would have a good rest at home. From then on, the guys became friends, so they saw each other quite often. After some time, the little girl reported that she had returned. The woman stated that it seemed that they had had a good time. Isabel reported that Rix said he had never climbed trees, so they went to the garden behind the temple and then to the river, since he had never fished. Thus, she met her fawn in the forest when she was 6, and from then on they saw each other every 2 weeks. At first, Maria was not very happy, but over time she resigned herself to it. Also, some priests began to come to them, but the temple had always been a quiet place. The woman said that the guests had already arrived, so she suggested going somewhere for now. On the way, the little girl asked who they were. Cecilia answered that they were priests who came from Vilsburg, and their temple is located on the territory of the Duke of Cardigo, far from the capital. They came to check if they were following the will of the goddess Aida. The girl asked who the man was. For some reason, he looked at her strangely. The sister explained that it was Father Matteo. He was just looking around because it was part of his duties and obligations. Our heroine immediately pressed herself against the woman and said that she felt somehow unwell. Cecilia noted that she seemed to be even more afraid of strangers than before, so she should go to her room. She will call her when her father leaves. They will simply see him off together. 4 years have passed since then. Isabel met the guy and said that today she was studying the history of the empire. And he, in fact, is very knowledgeable about it. She was given a lot of homework, so he should sit next to her as soon as possible. The young man brought her some candy, to which the little girl said that he had a very strict family, so he didn't need to treat her all the time. Rix asked what she really didn't want. Our heroine replied that she didn't say that because it was very tasty, but in general her sister gave her a ton of homework, and the tasks were getting more and more difficult. Why does she need etiquette and the history of the empire at all? She can't even imagine what she would do without it. The young man asked if this was really the story of Cardiego. Our heroine replied that yes, she had just read about the Duke yesterday, and now she knew the history of the 3 main families. The young man had a strange expression on his face, but the little one did not pay attention to it. Then he told her to sit closer as they would study the history of Cardiego. When Isabel asked why he was suddenly so keen on studying, the guy replied that it was because it was important. Even this temple was on their territory. Lavi suddenly appeared, apologized, and asked if Rix was too busy. Our heroine immediately ran towards her and said that she heard that in a month her family was moving to Ricelin had she come to say goodbye. After which, she suggested chatting a little on the sidelines, but her friend objected that she wanted to talk to the young man alone. As she left, the little one thought that sometimes she dreams of never parting with her dear friends, of living as one friendly family, even though she understands that this is impossible. However, this couple may get married someday, and both are her friends, so she will be able to visit them anytime. A girl can stay with them until late, and they will still always be glad to see her. But suddenly she heard the young man say that he was repeating once again that he was not going to meet her. This letter can be kept for herself. Rix hopes that she will quickly get used to the new city. Our heroine thought to herself that the guy had always been so kind and understanding, but now he was cold and distant. It seemed like he wasn't interested in a relationship. After some time, the little one asked what he had said to her friend. The friend asked her if she was so interested in what they talked about, if she wanted him to tell her everything. The little girl mumbled that Lavi just ran away without saying goodbye, so something obviously happened, and she was also in tears. The boy replied that she was probably just very upset about the move. Isabel thought to herself that it was clearly because of him. How could he be so rude? It definitely hurt her a lot. After which, she said that friends should love each other, so it was necessary to be softer with her. The guy immediately asked if she had eavesdropped. Then he asked her to look at him and asked if he and Lavi were the same in her eyes. The little girl replied that of course, even though she was moving, she would remain her friend, and the same would happen to him if that happened. But such a relationship was a completely different matter. He could have agreed to her proposal. The young man replied that he understood the difference. Isabel asked why he refused then, after which she exclaimed that she had many friends, but the young man had none. Then she realized that she had said something wrong and immediately began to ask for forgiveness. Then she hugged him tightly and said that she knew that she was the only one who was friends with him, but she thought to herself that it seemed like he wasn't interested in a relationship, plus he wasn't looking for friends. He wasn't at all like other boys. A couple more years passed. Since then, the girl thought that she would soon become an adult, and now she needed to hide from her sisters and slip away to the festival. So she folded the sheet and put it under the bedspread so that it would seem that she was sleeping. When she met Rix, she exclaimed that she had never seen him in that shirt. Could he really have dressed up for the holiday? The guy replied that he simply got a job as a postman and came here straight after work. Then he noted that she had prepared very well. The girl said that yes, because she had been waiting for this festival for so long and really wanted to see the fireworks. Our heroine heard that they look like a shooting star. If you make a wish, will it come true? The young man clarified what exactly she wants to make. Isabel replied that more than anything in the world, she wanted to never be alone again. When the friend didn't answer, the girl asked if something had happened. The guy replied that no, he was just thinking he needed to decide something, but he couldn't. He was offered some kind of internship, but then he would have to work hard for 6 months, so I'm not sure they will be able to see each other. But while the young man has not yet decided whether to agree or just leave everything as is most likely today, he will be able to choose. Then he asked for forgiveness and said that he did not want to spoil the mood before the festival, as she thought he should choose. Our heroine sadly answered that it was a difficult question, so she doubted that she could help in any way. He had to make such an important decision on his own. The young man thought to himself that she probably didn't want them to be separated. When they got to the festival, the girl noted that the holidays in the temple were completely different. Everything was so bright and beautiful there. The guy explained that in their temple they worship Aida more, so the decorations are appropriate. But of course, the Cardiego people also believe in her. But for them, the most important thing is the power of the underworld, so they like everything dark. Our heroine stated that now it is clear why the holiday is held at night, after which she suggested going for a bite to eat, since she had noticed a kebab tent. Suddenly, the thief snatched the wallet from her hands and began to quickly run away. Isabel muttered in confusion that all her pocket money was there, and that she definitely wouldn't find it in such a crowd. Then she told the young man that it was necessary to go further, but turning to him, she did not find him in that very place. The girl immediately remembered the words of Sister Maria, that when you get lost, you just need to stay in place and count. But how long will she have to wait? Maybe something happened. She's worried. Suddenly, she overheard a conversation between two men who were discussing that they did not understand why there were armed soldiers at the festival. They were making them nervous, because if they started to complain, they would definitely be arrested. He is an illegitimate heir, so what right does he have to act like this? He is demonstrating force in order to maintain discipline, apparently so that the nephew would not even think of challenging him. They say that the emperor will be chosen from the house of Cardiego. Their tyranny will become even worse. But the heir is still too young, who was born during a solar eclipse. Isabel noted to herself that there were indeed a lot of armed guards around it, Seemed that this family had some problems choosing a successor. It seems that I will only be able to watch the fireworks next time, because now I need to find a friend. Suddenly, the knight stopped her and said that they were sure that she would grow up to be a real beauty. Although now it was nothing. Wasn't she afraid to walk alone? It was very dangerous around, it would be better for her to go with them. The girl suddenly jumped out of her cloak and thought to herself that these were just two drunk soldiers, she could pacify them with magic. The crowd immediately started shouting that they were now pestering children. They were dead drunk. What was happening to the people who were supposed to protect them? The young people tried to object that they were not bad at all, and everyone got it all wrong. Suddenly, one of them was hit in the face with a gold coin at great speed. Turning around, our heroine saw a young man who was very angry and holding her wallet in his hands, after which he hissed that Isabel had told them to leave her alone. So why were they still hanging around here? The girl wondered to herself how he managed to knock out the guard with a coin. Was that even possible? Rix is somehow too calm. There are soldiers in front of him, but he is not afraid of them at all. She thought that her fawn was a coward. He lost in skirmishes with the village boys and went away crying. Even a 7-year-old calmed him down. Our heroine treated his abrasions, and we had to feel sorry for him and tell him that everything would soon pass. Now he asked for forgiveness for being late. The guy told the soldiers that he would report them, so they left by the way the thief tripped. When he was running away, so they managed to catch him. The girl was probably very scared, so it's worth taking her home already. Isabel looked at him with her mouth open and wondered if Sister Maria felt the same way. Children grow up very quickly. On the way, the girl said that running away at night turned out to be dangerous. It was probably better not to do that, but if he would protect her, then that would be a different matter. The guy surprised her a lot because she didn't think that her fawn had grown so much. The young man asked in surprise who she had just called a fawn, after which the young man added that he had thought about the proposal well and decided to agree to it. Our heroine smiled slightly and replied that it was fine, but she would miss him terribly. That year, the legitimate heir defeated his uncle and became the head of the house, a truly historic event. For the girl, the next 6 months were full of complete loneliness. Every day was like the previous one, and there were so many letters that there was nowhere to put them. She more or less coped with the homework from the saint, but there was absolutely nothing to fill the emptiness in her soul from the absence of her friend. So she turned 14. After some time, the young man finally appeared, who noted that they had not seen each other for a long time. Isabel started running around him and was surprised at how big he had grown. Even muscles had appeared, and there was no fat left on his stomach. The young man looks completely exhausted. Is that work really that hard? The guy replied that he missed her so much that he immediately ran to the meeting and did not sleep at all. So he was very tired. Our heroine muttered that even his voice had changed his facial features and his whole body. In general, now he looked more like a man than a child. After which, the girl felt very embarrassed that she had said something like that to him. Rix replied that his friend had changed no less. Didn't she notice? Then he suddenly fell silent and began to look somewhere to the side, and our heroine began to get nervous and ask if there was something wrong with her. Embarrassed and blushing, the young man replied that no, everything was perfectly fine. Then their first meeting after 6 months was awkwardly strange. Apparently that was when they began to grow up. Not long ago, an epidemic of a disease called Blyden reached the village, and in recent days many people have fallen ill, but fortunately the mortality rate from it was very low. The sisters had to wash and clean the patient's things all day long, until suddenly our heroine felt that she was somehow unwell. The girl asked if there was anything else that needed cleaning. She would definitely help, just let them ask. The women thanked her and said that she could take these books inside since clean ones had to be kept separately. Taking one of them in her hands, our heroine read the title, which sounded like, "Madam will not be lonely at night." Isabel wondered if it was possible for her to not feel lonely at night, since she even missed her parents, whom she had never seen. My thoughts were interrupted by my sister's voice, who said that she had found a cart which would be easier than carrying everything in my hands. Our heroine decided that she would definitely read this book when she had time. The next day, our heroine opened her eyes and felt that her stomach hurt. It became worse than yesterday. Even something was pinching in her chest. She had never felt so lonely. Upon seeing her, the women exclaimed that she was already awake, after which they asked if her friend would come today. Isabel decided that she would wait for now, since her sisters were already busy. She didn't want to disturb them. They had a lot of worries because of the epidemic. They shouldn't notice her sad expression, so she immediately started running away as far as possible. The young man asked how his girlfriend was feeling if she was feeling unwell. The girl replied that her heart was hurting, and she was very worried. The young man asked if something had happened in the temple. Our heroine answered that, no, it was just a pain in her chest, and her body felt strange. There was heaviness in her lower back and a stabbing pain in her stomach. This had happened before, but not so much. Our heroine did not understand what was happening to her. It was as if she was no longer sure of anything, but her friend was not to blame, after which she said that she needed to go. The young man began to worry about her very much, and to think that apparently she had not told her sisters anything either. Perhaps he should take her to the hospital. Maybe he could come to the church, supposedly to pray. Then the young man looked at the place where Isabel was sitting and was very surprised. The girl was thinking about the bloodstains she had noticed on the sheet the night before, and now her head was spinning and her stomach was hurting. Was she really going to die? After which the girl could not stand it and began to cry loudly. The sisters and Rix heard and immediately ran to her. Then they told her what menstruation was and added that she must have been very frightened. As soon as she calmed down a little and began to fall asleep, she heard someone's distant voices. The young man panicked in the hallway and said that she urgently needed help. The woman replied that she would not die. Let her just go to bed. But the guy objected that she was bleeding and had chest pain. When Rick said that they had found a new medicine that could even bring the dead back to life, Maria couldn't take it anymore. Shoved the book at him, told him to read it at home and stop talking nonsense. Let him read it 50 times to make sure he gets it. The publication was called The Secrets of Our Body for Women. Our heroine did not understand what they were talking about, but it became easier because her loved ones were nearby. When all this chaos was almost over, our heroine saw that some carriage had arrived. The girl did not understand who had arrived. They did not seem to be expecting priests today. Having met Father Mateo, the sister asked him what brought him here, since there had already been an inspection this month. The man replied that he was just passing by. Suddenly, Isabel heard him say that she was nowhere to be seen, since the girl was usually working somewhere nearby. What our heroine heard made her feel very uneasy. For some reason, it seemed to her that his unscheduled visit was connected with the beginning of her menstruation. The current situation in power is as follows. The emperor and empress died without leaving an heir. The weak younger brother of the ruler ascended to the throne. He has no children, at least for now, to continue the line. They will need someone from Vilsburg. Meanwhile, Maria answered her father that Isabel was resting. She was a little ill, nothing serious, but it wouldn't hurt her to rest for a couple of days. Unfortunately for now, she couldn't go out to see him. I need to worry. Let the man have no doubt because they take good care of her. To keep the line pure, a woman must possess the features of the goddess Aida, a virgin maiden with silver hair. But nothing is known about her origin. Is there really no one more suitable from a noble family in the capital? And how does Mateo even know that her body is capable of bearing a child? It seems like she's already overreacting. Then the girl decided that she needed to distract herself somehow, so she picked up the book that she had previously put aside to look at. Thus, our 14-year-old heroine discovered a whole new world for herself. For a whole week, she couldn't tear herself away from these books. Now it was clear why they had such strange titles. It was just amazing and very interesting since she didn't even know that such buildings existed. Then Isabel noticed that everything started to swim before her eyes. She hopes that this is not the disease that everyone suffers from now, because she took only cleaned books. After some time, the sister asked how she managed to get sick. The girl answered that she only took clean books. But the sister objected that she served the goddess Aida, and so she was punished for reading all sorts of nasty stories. To the laughter of the other nuns, our heroine replied that they were interesting, and no one had warned her that this would happen, after which she was told to take her medicine and go to bed. When all the women had left, Rix's voice came from behind the door. Asking if he could come in, he warned Maria. The girl felt very awkward after the previous situation, so she closed her eyes and began to explain everything to him. But the guy said that he was actually standing on the other side, after which he hugged her and told her to open her mouth so that he could put the candy in it. Then he asked for forgiveness and said that he simply did not understand why exactly she felt bad. He thought he knew Isabel better than the sisters who raised her, but it turned out that this was not so. The girl replied that he had nothing to apologize for, by the way his vision had returned to normal. What did he give her? The young man muttered that it seemed like it wasn't Blyden after all. Our heroine exclaimed that it didn't matter, she wanted to do something. Would he like to join in? The young man asked if she really wanted to read it with him since he was a guy. The friend exclaimed, "What's wrong with that? He's her friend." After that, she tried to show him what the book was about, but the young man turned away. After which, he added that he didn't want to read it. Let him do it himself. He didn't need that. Her sisters told her that this was called eroticism, and that it was completely normal to be interested in such things at her age. Her curiosity was quite natural. But Rix doesn't seem to be interested in the relationship between a man and a woman at all. 5 years have passed since then, and our heroine turned 19. She exclaimed that the valley was very nice, as if she had been born again. It's been so hot these last few days. Has the goddess turned away from the Vilsburg house? Suddenly, the young man jumped up and said that she needed a towel, so he would bring it now. When the guy returned, Isabel said that she had never seen such big and soft towels now. It was clear why he decided to go get it. The young man took the bottle of wine in his hands and asked in surprise where it came from, whether the sisters had given it to him. The girl replied that no. She took it herself, because she heard that it could be used to warm up. Rix asked if she had ever drunk anything before. Our heroine answered that, no. Never. The guy muttered that he should just not say that he decided to drink the bottle in one gulp. But Isabel objected that what difference did it make, if it would end up in her stomach anyway, and then began to drink greedily. After some time, the girl came to her senses and saw a young man nearby who asked if everything was okay. Isabel replied that she had a terrible headache. How did they end up in the field if they were in the valley? When the young man asked if she really didn't remember, our heroine replied that no. How could she have done that had she really hit her head? The young man smiled and replied that it seemed she really didn't remember anything. Of course, she didn't know how to drink at all. The girl thought to herself that she seemed to have forgotten something very important. But what exactly? Rix was somehow gloomy, perhaps upset about something. The young man said that if she was frozen, then she should come closer to him. Our heroine was very surprised since the guy had not touched her for a long time. It reminded her of the old days, and she was happy. Then she said that it would be good if a starfall began. The young man asked if she wanted to make a wish. Isabel replied that yes, never to be alone. The guy objected that she was not alone, to which our heroine said that indeed, she wanted them to always be together. After which, she suddenly asked if the young man would like to become a monk. She lives in a temple, and if he becomes a monk, they can always be together. He is not interested in girls anyway. The young man objected that his girlfriend did not intend to become a nun. Isabel replied that yes, such a life was not for her. Nuns must be pure in soul, and she could not be called that. Rix asked if this meant that she didn't want to remain chaste either. When the girl answered that, even if it was possible to become a nun with a dirty heart, she still wouldn't, but would rather get married. The guy was very surprised, after which he exclaimed, what was she talking about? Who was she marrying? Had she really already found a groom? Our heroine answered that no, she was just thinking about it. He should be tall and handsome. When Rix asked if there should be more, Isabel replied that she wanted him to wear a mask when they first met, and save her so he could sleep with almost no clothes on, but not completely naked, because it's not interesting when everything is on display, but slightly covered when he comes out of the bathroom, wrapped in just a towel. He should smell of soap. On the first night, they would not sleep a wink and break the bed, and he also had to be capable, and the best. The guy noted that it was not easy to meet all the conditions. Then he took a promise from her that until she found a man who met all the points, she would not get married. A couple of days later, the heat subsided, and Duke Cardiego officially declared his claim to the throne, which was fiercely guarded by the Vilsburg dynasty. Our heroine thought that yes, he is her friend, but it is worth admitting that he does not at all meet her requirements. Why did the young man leave for 6 months at all? He only made her miss her. The girl will take care of him. Then he will be able to earn a lot, and it will also be quite comfortable to lie on him. For a fictitious marriage, you simply cannot find a better candidate than a young man. Meanwhile, the guy gave orders to Bill to start preparing for the banquet. The budget is unlimited. He can't wait any longer, so let him try to keep up with the schedule. The servants were shocked that his lordship was throwing a banquet and wondered what the occasion was. Rix said that he was proposed to, and he is not going to refuse it. And by the way, they should start preparing for the wedding too. There are rumors in the castle of the Duke of Cardiego about a man with a seven-letter name, but it is not the butler Bill, although his name is Billion, whom the Duke loves very much. The young man gave instructions to decorate everything with lilies and white roses, and to buy more dresses, and not to forget about suitable jewelry, gloves, and shoes. The assistant objected that in order to order clothes, it is necessary to know their sizes or to order ready-made clothing models that are supplied for mass production. The guy replied that his fiancée wouldn't wear something like that. He knows the sizes, so let them order a normal dress. The young man thought to himself that he knew absolutely everything about Isabel, while the man was amazed that they were so close. Rumors of impotence are a blatant lie. He will make sure that no one else even thinks about it. Their master is healthy, just a bit of a romantic. The young man muttered that a new wedding ring was needed, since she wouldn't like the family one. Everything must be perfect, because this is not an offer you can refuse. After some time, Rix asked if he had said that he would consider it an honor to serve the next emperor. The butler replied that he had. His lordship added that he could thank his bride for this opportunity. He thought to himself that from the day she first hugged him when she invited him to play with her, his friend's dreams determined his future path. The guy spent half a year trying to displace his uncle because Isabel loves strong men. Bill, meanwhile, was thinking about what that grin was again, who he was going to kill. Cardiego wanted to propose to her when he was elected emperor, but she got ahead of him. Since he couldn't do everything the way he wanted, at least the wedding should be perfect. After which, he asked if the butler had found Maria's sister, but he replied that he was very sorry. But no. They searched literally every corner of the empire, but found no trace. The young man stated that it could not be ruled out that she was hiding on her own. In any case, let them throw all their efforts into searching and finding this woman. Meanwhile, our heroine was thinking about marrying her friend. I wonder what her sisters would say about this. They will most likely be surprised, but they should be happy for her, and Father Mateo will probably go crazy. It is necessary to tell everyone as soon as possible. Suddenly, 3 mercenaries climbed through her bedroom window and declared that it was definitely her, so she had to be taken alive. One of the men walked towards her and said that if she moved, they would cut off her limb. The girl did not understand who they were, why they were doing this. She had no family. She had lived obediently in the temple all her life. What had she done wrong, after which she began to mentally turn to Rix to help her? Suddenly, magical energy appeared, which neutralized the intruders. It turned out to be Mateo's father, who asked if everything was okay with her. Isabel was very surprised, since the temple priests are forbidden to use divine power to kill. For a second it seemed to her that a man had come to save her, but everything turned out to be completely different. On the way, the father thought about how her sisters adored her. Baron Iron had paid her a huge sum, and someone had even tried to kidnap her. What was so special about this girl? But in principle, it doesn't matter at all. He's not going to kill her, since he hasn't been paid the full amount yet. He has to hand it over to the Baron, and for now, let her sit in the basement. Having thrown her into the dungeon, Mateo ordered her to wait. It was safe there. A little later, he would come for her. Our heroine asked what to expect had the man really decided to sell her. The father wondered how much she knew. Perhaps she could cut it down, but then the price might fall, after which he replied that she really thought she could just refuse, and the Duke would leave the temple alone. When the girl replied that yes, the temple was important, but her life was more important, Mateo said that if the sisters returned and saw the ruins, they would blame her for everything. Isabel asked him in response whether he thought it wouldn't affect him, but she thought to herself that she would have to defeat him if she wanted to get out. But she never used magic for harm. She doesn't want to cause pain. Suddenly everyone will be disappointed in her. When divine energy began to appear in her hands, the man said that he guessed that she was hiding something. But was that really all? Except for her face, there was nothing sensible. Our heroine thought to herself that there was no need to be afraid, just a little bit more. It was necessary to make at least a small hole in it. Suddenly, his cassock caught fire, and the father wondered where the fire came from. Isabel wanted to take advantage of the moment and run away, but the man stopped her and asked where she was going. What would happen to him from her spark? But the clothes began to burn. Even more, Mateo exclaimed, "What has she done? Has she really sold her soul to the devil?" The girl replied that the sisters would definitely have found out about such a thing, but she thought to herself that it was strange. Could her magic really be that strong? Previously, she got lights no bigger than a fingernail. She thought about making a couple of small sparks. Why did they flare up so much? The girl wanted to take advantage of the moment and run away, but Mateo was not going to give up and rushed towards her in order to catch her. But suddenly, the man screamed loudly and began to fall to the ground, after which a voice was heard, telling Milady to close her eyes, because a burnt corpse is not the most pleasant sight, especially the fallen priest. It seems they were late. The girl is very pale, which means she is in shock. After which, they asked not to appeal to the power of the earth, because their skin the servants of the underworld would burn from such things. Isabel thought to herself that judging by the black aura, they were not ordinary people, and the reapers, the servants of Cardiego, wielded the power of the underworld. While the girl was mentally addressing the goddess Aida and talking about how she had lost her happiness, her loving sisters and best friend, the guys, said that they would take her to the Duke's mansion. All the events threw our heroine off track so much that after hearing this she simply lost consciousness. Meanwhile, Rix was thinking about why it was taking so long. Was it really that hard to bring a person, since he had sent not ordinary soldiers, but reapers? Some say that Cardiego and patience are incompatible things, but you have to look hard to find such patient people. It's just that with Isabel, it's a completely different matter. When dark energy appeared in his office, the young man immediately said to report everything to him. The young man who materialized asked his lordship's forgiveness for such a delay. The Duke asked, what was the matter? Was it really true that without Kiel, they were completely incapable of anything? The guy reported that Milady lost consciousness from shock. It seems she did not expect that they would come for her, so he had to give her time to calm down a little. Mateo's father acted as ordered. However, when they arrived, the girl killed him with fire magic. Rix asked what happened, because Isabel would not use magic unless absolutely necessary. The young man replied that apparently someone had tried to steal her from under their noses. They were convinced that Milady was now safe. The sisters had urgently returned to the temple from the pilgrimage. Right now, they are chasing the kidnappers, and they will soon find out who is behind all this. The Duke thought that there were several reasons why someone would want to kidnap her. Either they want to blackmail him, or it was all because of her divine beauty. Isabel is unable to calculate the power of magic, but the spells are always accurate, as if someone invisible was guiding her. Maria strictly forbade her to use magic except in cases where it was unavoidable. It seems that her abilities were discovered in early childhood. Judging by the first reaction of her sisters, she clearly has some kind of secret. A secret that the most powerful of this world want to possess proof of, which is her magic and appearance. And it's all about origin. Cardiego replied that he needed to bring Isabel quickly and that he would deal with them later, but the guy said that he wanted to give him something. After which, he handed over some paper and said that they found it with the kidnappers. After reading this, Rix asked who found it. The Reaper replied that Dell noticed it by chance. The Duke immediately said that this guy was going on a short vacation starting tomorrow. The young man was indignant to himself that he had been a Reaper for years, but this was the first time he heard about a vacation. Rix added that for 10 days and 9 nights, all expenses were on him, and all because it was a marriage contract drawn up by our heroine. Meanwhile, the girl opened her eyes and saw Sister Cecilia, who asked her how she felt. The woman can imagine how scared she was. When Isabel asked how they knew she was in trouble, the nuns replied that the Reapers had come for them. Who would have thought that they were so noisy? The guys panicked and tried to explain in a confused manner what had happened, as they were not used to emergency situations. But let our heroine not worry. They gathered their strength and surrounded the temple with a barrier. For the next few days, the servants of the underworld will not even be able to come near. The girl thought that everything was somehow strange. Mateo's father had sold her to the Duke of Cardiego. So why were the Reapers saving her from him? They seemed to have no connection with the masked men who attacked her, and the guys were also taking care of her. Perhaps the Reapers are actually kind, and the Duke is not what everyone says he is. Cecilia asked what happened, why she became so sad. Let her tell what worries her. Our heroine was just about to answer something when an irritated voice was heard from behind the door, which declared that these holy men could not be relied upon in anything. What a stupid priest! He got so angry that he even had to kill a couple of mercenaries to calm him down. But all's well that ends well. After which the stranger declared that he had come for Isabel. The girl immediately noticed the expensive suit jewelry and noted that it seemed he was behind yesterday's kidnapping attempt, and the stupid priest was apparently about Father Mateo. The young man ordered our heroine to come to him because she should know that he bought her. Our heroine asked if it came from Cardiego, why buy it at all? The young man replied that if he had come from the Duke, he would not have been able to penetrate the barrier. Even the reapers, who are the servants of his lordship, cannot overcome him. Everything turned out very well. The monks have very powerful magic, so the guys are unable to do anything. When Isabel replied that she couldn't hope that everything would go the way he wanted, the guy asked her if she still understood the situation she was in. At that very moment, a powerful formation for teleportation appeared around our heroine. The stranger said that they might be strong, but they were still stupid. Did they really think that he would lose? The women replied that they would check it. Now the young man would never get it. Looking around, the girl noted that this was not a street, but a basement. So why was she the only one transferred? Apparently, because of the barrier installation, the sisters became completely weak. Shouts began to be heard that it was urgent to find this girl. She could not have gone far. Our heroine noted that she would not have time to escape from here, but it was too early to despair. Even nuns have trouble finding their way around in the basement. Parishioners will notice something is wrong and inform the villagers, or a friend will sense that she is in danger and will come to her aid. But suddenly, as if out of nowhere, a stranger appeared, and Isabel wondered how he managed to find her so quickly. The young man immediately grabbed her by the throat and asked if she hadn't played enough hide-and-seek yet, and that now she would obey him in everything. But suddenly, the young man was enveloped in black energy, and our heroine thought to herself that this was the power of the underworld. It seemed that she would be saved. Then, the Duke of Cardiego appeared, who asked if he was Baron Iron. Hearing his voice, it seemed very familiar to our heroine, and she wondered if it was Rick's. He also has brown hair and a beautiful voice, but her friend is a small, gentle deer, not a villain. The guy thought to himself that he had been too hasty. If she had recognized him right away, it would have been very awkward. The girl didn't understand what to do next. Why he helped her at all? She needed to make sure that her sisters were okay. Rix was surprised that she really didn't recognize him, and what if she still doesn't understand, and then tells him that she fell in love with a guy in a mask? First, she will punish him for not telling him everything earlier, and then he will realize everything. Namely, that he's not such a bad guy, and is generally cool. Just let him not even try to lie to her anymore. Then she will definitely want to marry him if she doesn't guess. Then how will she be able to live in such a cruel world? After which, the young man thought that nothing could be done. He would always have to protect her. Our heroine looked at him with fear and asked why he decided to save her. The Duke of Cardiego replied that it was because she would soon marry him. Isabel was now convinced that the guy had no connection with the kidnappers and did not want to harm her. Perhaps she could even come to an agreement with him. When she cried out for his lordship to listen to her, the young man interrupted her and said that his decision was final. The wedding would take place. The girl objected that her heart belonged to another. The Duke replied that he knew and did not care. Isabel didn't know what to do, because Rick still hadn't given an answer, and she didn't want to drag him into this. It could only get worse. Having become very nervous, our heroine again began to simply lose consciousness. After some time, she came to her senses in the Duke's castle, and noted that everything there was not as she had imagined. A little earlier, when they tried to bring her to her senses, they said that no one would touch her in the palace. They would find the one who was behind the kidnapping. Her sisters are fine. They have been taken to a safe place so she can relax and not worry about anything. Looking around, our heroine thought that this was very strange, because they said that Cardiego loved everything dark. Then she looked out the window, saw that she was on the 3rd floor, and realized that there was no way to escape from here. But everything around was as she liked it. Perhaps he really loves her. But no, it's probably something else. They only met yesterday. They don't even know each other's views on the world, or even their hobbies. Most likely the reason is that she has a beautiful appearance, just a girl for one night. Nothing will change anyway, no matter who kidnapped her or wanted to marry her. No one will ask her opinion anyway. Rix is probably in a panic right now, and she will have to spend the night with a man who suffers from impotence. It is necessary to find a way to escape. Meanwhile, the young man was thinking about when it would be best to confess that he was the Duke of Cardiego, but it's impossible to simply say so since it's unknown what her reaction to this will be. Since she is already in the young man's castle, They will now be able to see each other more often. Isabel doesn't like Duke Cardiego, so you can try to get close to her with the help of Rix, whom she trusts. This way, they can spend time together, have lunch, and the girl will start to treat him like a man. When the Reaper suddenly appeared, the boy asked what had happened. Had they really found out who was behind the Baron? But the assistant replied that it was just my lady sitting by the window and sadly looking into the distance. The Duke replied that she was always like that when she looked at the stars. Nothing special, but the guy objected that before that, she muttered something about a night with a man suffering from impotence. Cardiego immediately said that he would hide his identity and go to the bride, let her bring suitable clothes. After some time, he knocked on her door, introduced himself, and asked if he could come in. When the girl asked how he ended up there, Rix explained that he got a job as a gardener at the castle. Our heroine thought to herself that this didn't seem true because he wasn't scared at all. She had heard that underground power had different uses. Was he even real? Noticing that the girl was looking at him with distrust, the young man asked if she really didn't believe him. Isabel replied that then he should name 3 books that she gave him to read, but he never returned. The young man blushed and began to list. Madam will not be lonely at night. Nightly methods of persuasion, after which he asked that perhaps this was enough. Our heroine immediately realized that it was indeed him and hugged him tightly. After some time, Isabel asked why he didn't say that he worked for the Duke. She was very happy because she didn't expect to meet him in this place at all. The friend replied that he was taken literally the other day. Good people work in the castle. Especially Cardiego, he is not at all what they say about him. Isabel asked if the gardener could really be left alone with the girl his master had kidnapped, since he was a man after all. When she added that it would be better for him to leave, since he could be punished, and she didn't want him to suffer. The guy asked why she was worried about him, since she herself had been kidnapped. Our heroine immediately suggested arranging an escape. First they would run away, and then they would get married, as agreed. Her sisters are far away now. She only has a young man and no one else. Rix replied that there was no need to worry, he would not be punished. It was his lordship's request, so that she would feel comfortable. The Duke does not like to rush or force someone. Patience is one of the values of the Cardiego family, so he will never do something that she does not want. The girl replied that it was a little strange, but she felt better as if he had told her all this himself. The friend added that if she needed anything, she should just say that there was nothing in danger here. There was no need to worry so much. Returning to his room, the guy thought that every day it was becoming more and more difficult to contain his feelings, which meant that he would make it so that she couldn't live without him either. The next day, our heroine was met by the maids, and they said that from that day on, they would help her. The girl was surprised that these were really reapers. She had never had servants before, but she said hello out loud, said that her name was Isabel, and that she was counting on them. But she thought to herself that she needed to live up to it, because it wasn't for nothing that she was taught etiquette. The maids were panicking in their hearts that this was the same girl from the rumors, so they couldn't make any mistakes. Even if they spilled boiling water on themselves, they shouldn't scream. The Reapers are mysterious inhabitants of the underworld servants of Cardiego, who wield dark magic. At first she was very afraid of them, but they turned out to be caring. But it was hard to believe that the Duke had sent warriors to serve her, because it was a waste of human resources. The maid handed her a beautiful bouquet of flowers and said that it was a gift from his lordship. He wished her a wonderful day. Our heroine thanked him and said that she should keep it in her room. She thought to herself that this was again what she liked, and she even felt a little uneasy. Lilies are the symbol of the Vilsberg family, so they are difficult to find. She noticed yesterday that almost nothing here suits the tastes of the Cardiego family. Is she really so important to the Duke that he asked Rix about her tastes? Or maybe it was the same person, but she immediately threw these thoughts away, because how could she doubt her friend, even though he suddenly appeared in the castle? After thinking about the Duke being born in the year of the solar eclipse, it dawned on her Rix was also born in that same year. After some time, the butler reported that this was the main garden. The left and right sides were absolutely symmetrical. The gardeners looked after the flowers every day. According to the traditions of this family, lilies and roses grow in the garden after the wedding. She will be able to walk there as much as she wants. The man was going on and trying to tell her everything, but the girl seemed not to be listening to him at all, so he asked what it was that she didn't like. Our heroine replied that the garden was wonderful, as was the bouquet that the Duke had sent. Did he really like lilies and roses? Bill replied that it was a tradition they didn't talk about it, so as not to harm the established image of the Cardiego family, but he thought to himself that this tradition had appeared 3 days ago on his orders. After which he asked if she liked her room. Isabel answered that she liked it very much, but shouldn't guests live in a separate place? The butler replied that she was the Duke's bride, and after the wedding they would live together, but the celebration had not yet taken place. So she had a separate room, and so he hoped for her understanding. The girl asked if he wanted to say that after the wedding they would sleep in the same room. The man replied that outside the Duke's estate he was not well known. Perhaps she had heard some bad rumors about him, but she herself should understand that rumors are often lies. Our heroine thought that the more they deny it, the more it seems to be true. But her friend has a similar problem. He is not interested in girls at all. She thought that the reason was purely psychological, but perhaps the problem is something else. After which she asked the butler if he would show her where the library was. Having brought it to its place, Bill said that Cardiego is very proud of it. No one else in the Empire has one. Like it, the right and left sides are absolutely symmetrical. She can take any books besides all the bookcases are enchanted, so you don't have to ask permission if you want to take a book with you, and there is also a secret section downstairs, but only the heir can enter there. Isabel was amazed by such a huge library, after which she thanked for everything, and said that she would like to look around herself and would call if she needed help. Then she thought it was time to look for evidence she knows when Rick's birthday is first. She needs to find the exact date of the eclipse. If he's lucky, he'll find out the Duke's name. It would be nice to find a book with records about his family. After some time looking around the corner, our heroine noted that she had already passed this place more than once, but somehow she did not remember such a luxurious wardrobe. There were luxurious books in leather covers, and each one had the year signed on it. The girl wanted to reach one of them, but couldn't hold on and fell to the floor, dropping several publications. The butler said that she can take any books. But is it true that she can read whatever she wants? A moment later, she found what she needed. A boy born in the year of the eclipse, named Efrix Cardiego. It cannot be that her fawn and this monster were the same person. Why did the young man deceive her for so long? He could have told her everything. Maybe they just have similar names, or they are just brothers. It is necessary to find the exact date of birth. Lately, she felt something strange. Someone was calling her name and telling her not to panic that she was calling her. And here she was. After this, our heroine suddenly felt ill and began to lose consciousness. After some time, the young man angrily asked why his bride had fainted. The servants replied that they did not know the exact reason, but it seemed that something had shocked her greatly. The guy noted to himself that such a tender and fragile creature had no place in a world full of danger. Only he can be there when she is in such a state. So Isabel must live with him. Suddenly Rick saw a book that was lying next to her. These were the records for the year in which he was born. How the thing from the secret compartment ended up with her. Did our heroine really read it and guess everything? But she could have asked directly. He was very excited and interested in how she would react when she came to her senses. Will the girl want to know more about him? Will she call him Efrix? Suddenly, a reaper materialized in the room, and the Duke stated that he was late, after which he asked if Kill had completed the task. The boy replied that it was not that easy to track a bunch of people. He himself asked for it. And what kind of girl is this anyway? Is she for sacrifice? Or will they eat her together? Cardiego immediately grabbed him and said that he was giving him 3 seconds to take his words back. The kid asked in surprise what was wrong, after which he noted that she was breathing and asked if they would eat her alive. The Duke irritably replied that Isabel could not be eaten. She would live with him. The long-forgotten name Kierkegaard was eventually changed to the simple Kill, and that is what this boy was now called. He thought to himself that this was the same girl from the rumors. At first he thought that she was some kind of witch, since Rix fell for her even taking into account the blessing of the goddess. But in fact, the girl turned out to be even more beautiful than he thought. And what's more, the Duke couldn't take his eyes off her. Is it really the king of the underworld who summoned him when he was 7 years old? He begged him to make it look a little like that, since he takes on the appearance of a summoner, but now he is even pleased with his appearance. When he asked if her name was Isabel, the guy replied that he shouldn't dare call her that. The boy muttered that he felt somehow awkward when he behaved like that, but he thought to himself that it was probably because the love was unrequited. The kid read a bunch of magazines in the underworld. Now everyone loves bad guys, but the Duke objected that he would not treat badly the one he loves. Kill replied that the fact that he can't seduce the girl he likes is a blow to his self-esteem. Other Reapers always ask why the Overlord is still alone. Is it because he is impotent? The young man began to get angry and asked if it was really he who was spreading these rumors, but the boy responded by asking why he did it. He, on the contrary, denied everything and told everyone that it was the best both in size and quality, but they still didn't believe him, and all because the guy was still alone. If the owner wants, they can find out who started disbanding them. Rix replied that he should do so. This will be his next task. He has already found some evidence. Let him prepare the soul of Baron Iron. He needs answers. The boy was delighted that he finally recognized Duke Cardiego. He killed that man, and now he also demands his soul. When the guy asked how much time he would need, and whether 10 days would be enough, Kill asked in surprise who he took him for 1 week would be enough for him. Having come to her senses after some time, our heroine thought to herself that there were ghosts in this palace. What conclusion can be drawn from what she has learned? If Rix is indeed a duke, he will not harm her, but it turns out that she does not know him at all. Suddenly the Reapers appeared and asked if she wanted to go for a walk. She was expected at the ball tomorrow, so they decided to check on her well-being. The maid still didn't understand whether she felt better or not. She doesn't understand such things very well. The girl thought to herself that she was just scared by ghosts. I wonder if they know anything about this. The maid continued that she hoped that she would get better soon, and in the meantime she would bring her something to eat. A moment later, she brought her a fruit tart with special berries from the Duke's garden. They grow only in the Cardiego Palace and have a strong pain-relieving effect that lasts for more than a week, and also relieves nightmares, so she will feel calmer. His lordship personally ordered it to be prepared for her. Let her enjoy. Isabel noted to herself that these were the same berries he gave her to reduce the pain during menstruation. Rix thought that the girl always loved to read scenes about balls, how people dance under a sparkling crystal chandelier, confess their love to each other. Soon she would see everything that he had prepared for her. Our heroine said that she wants a ring with a large diamond. We can only hope that she won't refuse him. Looking at the Duke, Isabel thought about how similar they were. But Rix always had disheveled hair, simple clothes, but even so, he was cute. The young man approached her, took her hand, and asked if she would agree to dance with him. Our heroine danced at the ball of her dreams. Just 2 days ago, she thought that all this could be an illusion of the magic of the underworld. This is the palace of the Duke of Cardiego himself. Everything should be gloomy and scary, but in fact, everything was the opposite. When the young man bent her over, our heroine asked if his name was really Rix. After which, she removed the mask from the young man and saw her friend in front of her. The guy sighed heavily and said that it took her so long to figure this out. The girl muttered, "What does it mean, Rix? The truth is, Rix Cardiego." The young man replied that it is true, but Rix can only be called by her. When our heroine grimaced, the Duke noted that it seemed that his bride's shoes were too tight, so let Rose choose some others. After they left, the young man stood thinking about what she realized was all the same person. Then he turned to the butler and asked him to bring him a glass of water, and the boy asked if he had ever liked such holidays before. After which he came closer to the Duke and asked what he was going to do next. The young man replied that it was enough to pester him. The wedding would take place in 2 weeks. Our heroine thought to herself that he had lied to her more than once or twice. Lied about work, about savings, about absolutely everything, after which she asked if she could have a few words with him without prying eyes. The young man will definitely get it from her as soon as they are alone. When they went out onto the balcony, the young man said that it was not necessary to address him as you. Everyone knew that she was his longtime girlfriend and now his fiancée. Then the young man asked what she wanted to talk about. Our heroine indignantly asked why he lied to her. The Duke replied that she lived in the Vilsburg Temple and they could not stand Cardiego. The moment was lost, and then it was somehow awkward to confess. Plus, she herself did not give him a chance to tell everything. He even washed the dishes at her request. He himself would never have touched her. Isabel muttered that she just wanted to play with him longer, after which he asked the question was that really all she wanted to ask. Why was she not interested in why he brought her to the castle? Our heroine replied that it didn't matter. The most important thing was that he didn't buy it after all. The Duke replied that yes, the one who bought it came to the temple for it. Baron Iron. The head of this family is far from the last person in Cardiego. It seems he bribed someone to make everything look like Rix gave the order. Mateo's father sold it to him, but he's already finished it. Remains to be seen who is behind all this. When the guy said that there was no need to worry, Isabel thought that she couldn't even believe it. But he had been deceiving her for so many years. But she still trusted him. His words even made her feel better. But the girl was still angry when she proposed, without knowing anything anyway. What's the point now? The young man replied that he had no intention of breaking off the engagement, after which he got down on one knee and asked her if she would marry him. When Isabel opened the box, she saw a ring with a huge diamond. Her most cherished dreams came true. She recalled saying that if he got down on one knee and asked her to marry him and pulled out a ring with his name engraved on it, she could kiss him when she missed him. When the girl hesitated, the guy said that he couldn't refuse because she was the first to propose to him. And besides, among all the local men, he was the closest to her ideal. Isabel did say that she likes tall, stately men who smell of soap and sleep almost naked. She wanted to stay up all night on her wedding night, break the bed, and wake up in the morning on the sofa wrapped in the curtains, torn off the night before. Then they have breakfast together. The young man can give her whatever she wants. And also, the girl always dreamed of a surname, so she will be able to take it, so let her marry him. Then the young man asked why she chose him to propose to. The girl replied that she was simply waiting for him that day, and to tell the truth, she was indeed considering other options. When asked why she decided to settle on him, Isabel replied that he is still her friend. No one knows her better than him. The guy is not like other men, so in this regard, it is safe with him. The young man did not understand in what other sense, of course. He did not even hope to hear that she decided so because she loved him. But what kind of reason was this anyway? After which he said that the wedding would take place in just 2 weeks. He was in a hurry because she wanted to get married as soon as possible. Rix thought that she just wanted to marry him so badly. But the girl, it turns out, was using him. But never mind. He won't force her if she wants it that much, then he will immediately cancel all preparations. Our heroine exclaimed that it was not necessary, they had already agreed on everything. So why cancel? The wedding will take place. Let himself be embraced. It is not proper for everyone to see the Duke crying. Cardiego thought to himself that he knew how pathetic he looked, but if it would help him be close to her, then he was ready to be the most pathetic person in the world. The next day, the servants discussed that their master was crazy about a girl with a 7-letter name. They heard that his lordship even burst into tears in front of her, and it seems even begged on his knees. The maids looked at her with admiring eyes, and Isabel did not understand why they were staring at her like that. The man introduced himself and said that he was Earl Grey, one of the Duke's closest assistants, and that he would be teaching her. The girl replied that she had never been in high society before, but promised to study hard. She thought to herself that she would still become the wife of Duke Cardiego. Many would surely envy her plot and spread gossip. She didn't want to seem like a simpleton. Therefore, she will have to work hard. She stumbles every time she needs to introduce herself, since she can't remember her last name. Perhaps I should take my sister's surname, Maria, for now. After all, she is like family to her. I'll have to ask her. The teacher said that one should not forget that he is lower in status than her. Status in high society plays a huge role. It is the basis of social interaction. His lordship will be the next emperor, so there will be many guests at the wedding. She must learn all the names and titles as well as who is who, and what is their relationship to whom. First, they will begin to study other ladies. Our heroine thought to herself, does all the nobility really have to remember so much? I noted to myself that it was very strange, but she looked very much like a lady who was always in the center of attention, after which she asked for forgiveness and asked where she spent her childhood. Isabel answered that she grew up in a temple on the border of the land of Cardiego. Gray replied that he was mistaken. It seemed that at one of the receptions, he saw a woman similar to her. Our heroine was very interested in this, so she asked to tell in more detail, even just a little, what reception she had been to, and she thought to herself that no one had ever told her before that she looked like anyone. The count replied that most likely it was with the emperor. He had already become too old, so he had completely forgotten. Isabel asked what this stack of papers was. The teacher replied that it was a list of those who would not come to the wedding. she should be interested. The girl replied that of course she would become part of the Cardiego family, so she should figure everything out as soon as possible. The first list included a baron, the head of the Iron family, but not long ago, the Duke deprived him of his title and life. Even if you see someone like that at a banquet, you need to control yourself. Self-control is the most important thing in high society. Then she asked who this man was. He had hair and eyes like Rick's. The man explained that it was Buis Cardiego, the now deceased uncle of his lordship. But he would tell about it a little later. But he thought to himself that it was too early for her to know this, perhaps later when she became a duchess. The girl holds herself very confidently, grasps everything on the fly, and remembers things perfectly. The man thought the reapers were exaggerating about her, but it seemed he was simply prejudiced against her. Meanwhile, the young man was thinking that he wondered how she was getting along there. He was very surprised when he heard the count praising her and saying that the lady seemed to be serious about becoming a duchess, was well versed in social norms and rules, and was also smart and quick-witted. Isabel never ceases to amaze him. He is not worried about her at all because he knows how she can adapt to the situation. Our heroine is simply perfect for the role of the Duchess. There is no doubt that she will later become a worthy empress. Suddenly, Kill's voice was heard saying that with such a grin, he looked like a pervert. The boy came because he had just finished the task. The Duke asked what he had managed to find out. The assistant reported that absolutely everything revolves around his uncle Buis Cardiego. The young man thought that he hated this name and would never forgive him for coveting his beloved. After which, the young man said to immediately bring Baron Iron to him. When the man appeared, the Duke said that he hated messing with the dead, and then asked who had ordered him to attack the temple. The Baron replied that his uncle, although he had been killed by his own hands, his soul still wandered the world because of the contracts he had made during his life, and was obliged to obey the will of the one who appeared in his dreams. Cardiego thought to himself that it didn't matter that Buis's soul was still not at peace, nor that he could use the powers of the underworld. What mattered was that he needed Isabel. When the guy asked what exactly he ordered to do, Iron replied that he was to kidnap the girl and deliver her to the Vilsburg Palace. They entered into close marriages in order to monopolize the blessing of the goddess. If their blood flows in Isabel, then it is understandable why she is so hunted. But among the nobility, there are many unmarried girls. Why her in particular? Suddenly, the boy said that the reapers say that in the last days, blue butterflies have been flying everywhere, and it is not even spring yet. The young man noted to himself that this was the symbol of the goddess Aida, but perhaps this was just a coincidence. The Baron began to beg that he be pardoned and that he would tell everything he knew. The Duke replied that good, then he would not tear out his tongue so that he could tell everything. Meanwhile, at Vilsburg Palace, Royan, who is a representative of the blue blood of this dynasty, burst into the room and asked if there was any news from His Majesty. Then he sat down in a chair and thought that, damn this old man, he had only one task and he couldn't cope with it. The girl asked for forgiveness and said that she was doing everything in her power, adding medicine before bed. But after all, he was 70 years old, and leaving heirs at that age was very difficult. The young man picked up that moreover 15 years ago he had to experience the year of death. Since then, he had become very depressed. Roy muttered in irritation. When did their family manage to get to this point? 15 years ago, as a result of a single incident, all direct descendants of Vilsburg died, except for the emperor. The dynasty, which lost all successors, is still desperately trying to hold on to the throne. After a long discussion, the young man came to the conclusion that they were of absolutely no use. Moreover, in the end, they all just started praying to the goddess Aida. What else could one expect from them? The deity left their family, and he kept waiting for her to return. But this never happened. But finally, luck found him. Suddenly, one of those present asked the question, did he really want the throne so much? The guy replied that he just wanted to save the family if they finally had an heir. Then, it could be considered a huge success for Isabel, too. The young man learned of her existence only thanks to the Cardiego stone. The heavens themselves have sent him an opportunity. Now he has Isabel Vilsburg. She will marry him and give birth to the future emperor. Now Han can act independently and not rely on a miserable old man. They will do a great thing if they give the country a true heir. When their child becomes emperor, he will finally receive the respect he deserves if she wants to marry Cardiego. Then it's not a problem, he only needs her body. A woman of royal blood must be prepared to make such sacrifices for the sake of the country. Meanwhile, our heroine came to the council of the nobility to discuss issues concerning the wedding. The guy immediately said that in a few days the girl would become a duchess. Let them treat her with due respect. Looking at the expressions on their faces, Isabel realized that it would not be easy. She sees curiosity, doubt, and envy. After some discussion, one of the men said that of course it was not for them to decide how he should spend his money, but didn't it seem that for a commoner woman, this was an unaffordable luxury? This wedding is worthy of the imperial family in its scope, and this is too much. Our heroine understood that they were looking down on her, but such an attack was too obvious on the part of Viscount Leiter. She had never been in such a situation. Then she said that his words made her think, as he said it, "Is not right to spend too much on a wedding." The man replied that it was true, and it would be nice to find someone suitable for the position of Empress. Isabel thought to herself that he was pushy, apparently wanting to say that a one-night stand was not suitable for this role. However, her sisters taught her not to fall for provocations, so she replied that the future of the people still depended on the Empress. After some time, the girl thought that she understood that they did not like her, and they had many reasons for this, but this was not a reason to neglect the wedding of her duke. A little earlier at a meeting of nobles, she said that she knew how to reduce expenses. She had no idea that a wedding would require so many pearls, which were imported from the territory of Viscount Leiter. I thought to myself, where do so many pearls come from in the mountainous region? It seems they buy them abroad for cheap and then resell them at exorbitant prices. After which, she added that they could reduce their wedding expenses quite well by using pearls. Firstly, they don't need that much, and secondly, it's worth buying them at a lower price. Thanks to this man for the tip. Thanks to him, this problem will be solved. This aristocrat only provoked her with words, but others can go much further. She is already in the middle of a battlefield. She needs to learn to stand up for herself. Every day, her magical abilities became better and better. She did not understand where she got so much power from. Before, no matter how much she practiced, there was no progress. We need to find more books about magic. Since the day she fainted, the girl hasn't gone to the library anymore. Then I noticed the blue book, and thought that it was somehow strange that a publication about the Vilsburg dynasty ended up among the books with the history of the Cardiego family. She looks pretty expensive after all. Even the power of the underworld was granted by the goddess Aida. The great magician said that if you want to know magic, then first know their goddess. As soon as she opened the book, a female voice was heard, which said that Isabel had finally found her. The butterfly she sent to meet her became only a snack for the reapers. Our heroine didn't understand what was happening. It seems she brought a ghost from the library with her. Then the girl immediately ran into that room, but she could not find that beautiful wardrobe anywhere. This was very strange, because she had been told that all the books were enchanted, and if she brought them back, they would return to their original place by themselves. Isabel thought wearily that she didn't understand why absolutely nothing was happening. Suddenly, a blue butterfly appeared, and the same voice said, "Did she really leave her goddess for the sake of depraved books?" Our heroine thought to herself that this was some kind of nonsense a goddess would never say. Depraved books, more like some kind of grumpy old woman. The ghost said that it was enough to ignore her. She really is a goddess. Didn't Sister Maria teach Isabel some manners? The girl decided that it was time for a backup plan, so she sat down and began to meditate, because they say that this can weaken the demons. When the voice again rang out, saying that it seemed she was even too kind to her, our heroine grabbed the book and began to read aloud what was written there. The moonlight illuminated Cassile's muscular chest, let her just imagine a naked man walking straight towards her. When Rick's face popped into the girl's head, she realized what she was even thinking about. The goddess immediately said that it was better to be humble and innocent, because that only caused problems, but Isabel thought that she was simply too tired. It was no wonder that, after all, a friend appeared in her fantasies. Sister Cecilia, who said that if you read profane books, you can grow up strange, was right. She really doesn't want to end up as a weird duchess, so she'll just pretend nothing happened and go to her room. Suddenly, a boy appeared in the library and said hello, and our heroine screamed in surprise. Isabel immediately grabbed him and exclaimed that he was so cute. What was his name? Kill thought to himself that butterflies were flying around her. He needed to take a closer look at her. After which, he introduced himself and asked what she was doing here all alone. Then I noticed the book about Vilsburg, and I didn't understand where it came from, whether the girl had really gotten into the secret department. But how? The woman whose aura he felt doesn't want to show herself to anyone anymore, and she's also an upstart. Plus, she came specifically to the future Duchess. Is Isabel somehow connected to Vilkberg? The nobility have always been dissolute, so I'm sure they have a lot of illegitimate children. But these butterflies, she is clearly not some bastard. Now it's clear why so many people are hunting for her and want to get her for themselves. After which, he asked if she wanted to be friends with him. Our heroine replied that, of course, she wanted to. How could she resist, because he was such a cutie? Suddenly, Cardiego appeared and asked what they were doing there. Kill immediately thought to himself that he was screwed. Noticing the angry expression on the young man's face, our heroine immediately asked if he really didn't like children. After which, he immediately grabbed the baby and began to say that she could not even imagine how crazy her childhood friend was about children. Kill thought to himself that this was simply disgusting. He then explained that this child was a member of the Reaper family. His appearance was deceptive. In fact, he had lived for more than 200 years and was already elderly. If you give him enough strength, he will look like an adult. But he is satisfied with everything. So he walks around in this form. Despite his appearance, even the butler treats him with respect. After which, he threw it aside and asked if she had always liked children. The girl answered that, yes. If she had them, she would love to kiss and cuddle them. When Isabel answered yes to the question of whether she would like to have a child, the young man stated that since he was her future husband, he should become a father. Our heroine muttered, unless they adopt him, since she continued to believe in all these ridiculous rumors. Rix made a sad face and said that since childhood, he did everything to become an ideal husband for her, because she deserves a worthy man as a spouse. The girl immediately began to calm him down and say that of course they would have their own child. The young man immediately smiled broadly and thought to himself how much longer he would have to pretend to be a fawn. After some time, when Isabel left, the guy turned to the goddess Aida and said that he felt her presence. If she did not answer him, then he would change the holy scripture. Immediately, a female voice was heard, calling him an infidel Cardiego. Such a frivolous attitude torments her soul. Let her put aside the sacred scriptures, since it is necessary to talk. When the young man had done what was required, the ghost said that it seemed that everyone except her Isabel knew the truth. As she had said from now on, she was a spirit that was connected only to her. The girl is the last direct descendant of the Vilsberg family. The young man hissed, asking if she knew that for the women of this dynasty, her blessing was like a curse. Isilda replied that she knew but wanted him to understand that she was completely on Isabel's side. But to watch Cardiego thinking about this girl every night, you can't even imagine that in your sick imagination. After which, she said that she needed to show something to the young man. These were the people who approached her and said that from that day on, the king had only one direct descendant left. So they asked her to fulfill her mission and bless the imperial family. Although the goddess has lost the ability to foresee, she hears people and their prayers for help. Sooner or later, her Isabel will be attacked, probably right after the wedding. As the spirit that protects this child, she wants him, the unfaithful one, to be ready for this. Isilda wants to protect her with all his might, the one who exudes the aroma of ripe grapes. He must realize that she is really worried. But suddenly the young man answered that, no, this is not the aroma of ripe grapes, but of unripe green grapes, and this is not discussed. After a while, the butler reported that the preparations were going well. Today was a solemn day, the most important in the history of the Duke of Cardiego. It will be a simply grand wedding, to begin with. They will decorate the table with lilies and pink roses in the foreground, a blue bow decorated with a sapphire, as befits a lady. A delicate pearl decoration will become a symbol of leadership, will emphasize all the magnificence of the lady's figure, her romantic nature. His lordship is undoubtedly the second protagonist of this ceremony. 2 orders on his chest as a symbol of his nobility, and hair combed back will complete his stately image, emphasize his attractiveness, and will completely match the lady's taste. They also banned entry to guests who had previously been seen not to comply with the agreed dress code, and they also had a conversation with the spirits, giving them the task of ensuring that no one allowed themselves to cast flirtatious glances at Isabel. Young spirits who are distinguished by a good physique will have to cover their buttocks and thighs. They will arrange a dinner in the open air in her favorite garden, pink and white wine, to match the snow-white garden. They are also planning to release the white peacock at the right moment. But one question remains open: what to do about the absence of Sister Maria? The young man thought to himself that this was a tiny flaw in all the splendor he wanted the bride to receive the blessing of those closest to her. After which he asked what was wrong with the other nuns. Bill replied that everything was unchanged, but due to the injuries received during the incident with Baron Iron, it was difficult for them to move. The young man ordered to plan a separate visit to them after the wedding. Suddenly, they ran into our heroine, who stated that Rix had finally arrived. After which she added that this outfit suits him very well. Cardiego responded in kind. The girl exclaimed that it would be a wonderful union of natural beauty and talent. The guy thought to himself that it wasn't the guests that were worth worrying about. Isabel was the real problem. If our heroine attended a sacred assembly, the temple would certainly receive generous donations. Even the Cardiego family, which had long revered the powers of the afterlife, thought about changing their religion. It's not like some guy suddenly burst in here and challenged him to a duel, but it's still very unsettling. Isabel took him by the arm and said that it was time to go. It was necessary to greet the guests. The girl rehearsed diligently, so there is no need to worry about anything. On the way, Isabel thought that the ceremony was about to start, but he looked rather gloomy, so I asked him if he was feeling okay since his face was very pale. The guy replied that everything was fine, but let him stay with him from the beginning to the end of the ceremony. Even if someone behaved extravagantly, let him not pay attention. You need to consider that the person is simply not himself. If she needs something, or becomes uncomfortable, let her tell him and not someone else. The girl asked, why does he really think that someone will break in? The young man replied that no, he just hates it when she smiles while looking at someone else, because from now on, he is her husband. Our heroine didn't understand what was happening. It seemed like nothing unusual had happened. Rix must have just been overexcited. Suddenly, a voice was heard, which addressed the lord of the great power of the afterlife of the Cardiego family and his life companion, and told them to go into the hall. A man announces the birth of a new duke and duchess of the Cardiego dynasty. Glory to the endless line. Now let the newlyweds exchange wedding rings. Isabel was a little distracted and thought about the fact that the wedding palace and the guests who arrived with congratulations, the decorations of beautiful roses and pearls, everything perfectly matched her taste. Her thoughts were interrupted by Rix's voice, who asked her if she liked the organization of the wedding. When the girl replied that everything was just wonderful, the young man put a ring on her finger, after which the young man added that he would definitely become an ideal husband for her. After some time, the butler said that the reception was probably in full swing. Everyone was waiting for the main couple to appear. Rix objected that it was unlikely, since most likely everyone was already drunk. Then he thought to himself that he had imagined this day many times, and in the end, he was standing next to her. Yes, he sought sympathy through false acting, and was reproached for his cowardly exploitation of Baron Iron's crisis. But the only thing that matters at the moment is self-defense. After which he asked how the situation was. Bill replied that he had not noticed anything suspicious, and that it was also calm outside. Cardiego wondered if those possessed by the goddess Vilsberg were to invade at a time when they were relaxed and vulnerable, which would probably be after the wedding. However, the goddess turned away from them all in order to become the spirit protecting Isabel. Is it even possible to blindly believe her words? We must not forget that divine and human standards are different. Therefore, he ordered to continue observing. They must not relax under any circumstances. Then the young man went to the terrace, where his bride was supposed to be waiting for him. Near the door, he heard a woman's voice saying that she had absolutely no idea where her place was, and didn't even know her last name because of her lowly origins. A woman without a fortune, knowing the Duke's weakness, seduced him with sweet words. A plain girl with a smooth face, with no relatives to take care of her. How did she ever manage to become a duchess? Does everyone agree with that? Some time ago, the maid told our heroine that she would stay with her until the Duke came. Whether it was too dark for her here, the girl replied that everything was fine. It was a good place to rest. The banquet hall was simply overcrowded, so they wanted to get some fresh air. The maid replied that compared to other families, the Duke's wedding was quite lively. In addition, the young man appeared without a mask for the first time, plus all the attention was focused on the drinks and not on the rituals. She is simply delighted with their couple. As soon as they enter the banquet hall, people will immediately flock to them. It is better to mentally prepare for this in advance. Then Rosie said that the wind had blown and that it would not do. She would go and fetch a blanket for my lady. Our heroine thought that the moment of loneliness had finally arrived. It had been so long since she had been alone. Until recently, she always watched the stars alone. But now the reality is that she and the fawn have become spouses. The young man remembered everything that she told him during their many years of friendship, and how long he kept it all in his heart. Suddenly a girl appeared and stated that it was spacious and quite cozy here. Then she asked if she was alone here. Could she join her? There was no free space anywhere. There were already these drunken guests everywhere. Isabel noted to herself that she herself was already quite drunk, after which she replied that she had come with her retinue and could stay until they returned. And then I thought that I had seen it in the book, suggested by Count Grey. Suddenly the girl said that she didn't recognize our heroine's face. Was she also invited or something? Let them not pretend that they don't know all the young ladies who were here were brought by the father in order to find the lady of the heart of the Duke of Cardiego. By any means in general, it's all absurd. Who would have thought that he would be so handsome if she had known this before? Despite the rumors that he was impotent, she would have definitely tried to seduce him. She thought the words about God's justice were just a rumor spread by Vilsberg in some ways. Honestly, that along with the beautiful face, the Duke also got an awkward problem. When the girl added that he would really marry such a woman, Isabel asked what kind. She does not even know her last name because of her low-origin women, without a fortune, knowing the weakness of the Duke seduced him with sweet speeches. How did she even manage to become a duchess, an ugly woman with a smooth face with no relatives to take care of her? Did she really agree with this, after which she realized that she didn't know her name? Our heroine answered that she is Isabel. She has no family or fortune, so she does not know her last name. But now her name is Isabel Cardiego. It is no matter if she does not tell her name, since it is known, namely, Lily Latour, the youngest daughter of Viscount. The girl must have had too much to drink if she remembers their conversation. She will certainly feel awkward. And as for the rumors that the Duke of Cardiego suffers from impotence, that's complete nonsense. Didn't she know about it? Lily mentioned justice, so the world is inherently unfair. After which our heroine stood up and headed towards the door, as she did not want to stay there any longer. Suddenly she ran into the young man and asked when he had managed to arrive. Lator ran up to them and began to ask for forgiveness. Isabel even managed to forget about her for a second. The guy grabbed her by the face and said that as he thought she was the best, and the girl asked what happened. Rix thought to himself that on the day they first met, a seed had sprouted in his heart. The sprout that had been growing alone all these years and had turned into a flowering tree, now it has finally begun to bear fruit. With these lips, our heroine said that her name is now Isabel Cardiego, so it is possible to tell the truth. After which he said out loud that now they were married, so he would like to tell her something. For him, she is not just a friend, but the only woman ever since he saw her. If Rix had known that she would freeze in surprise, he would have kissed her. The girl always teased him. Her vulgar jokes made him forget how to breathe. From now on, he is her husband, and he is going to make her feel the same. After this conversation, the guys returned to the celebration, as everyone was obviously already waiting for them. Kill told Isida that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Maybe they'd have a drink and tell her how she'd been doing all this time. The woman objected that Kierkegaard was from the dungeon too young to drink with her, even a glass. And the boy asked why she was so obsessed with her sister. The goddess replied that she would protect Isabel, and hoped that he was not so suspicious because of the agreement they had made earlier. The demon replied that no matter how much he thought about it, she was very strange being transcendental. She loved people so much, despite how she was betrayed. Then he approached Bill and said that his older brother had finally gotten married. He thought he wouldn't live to see this moment. Why shouldn't he also have a rest on such a day? It would be a sin not to drink. The butler said that now would be the most interesting part, after which the man added that they had high hopes for their wedding night. Sometime later, sitting in the bathroom, our heroine reflected on what it meant that Rix saw her as a woman. He was a fawn, her friend. It is impossible to become a man. So quickly, the guy was always like a brother to her. When he cried, the girl hugged and consoled him, a younger brother who always needs to be taken care of. Every time Rix was beaten, she kissed his forehead. I wonder if he felt the same then as she does today. Everything was different. different from what her sisters did for her. It was like a cloud that filled her heart. Right now, our heroine seemed to find herself at the bottom of a deep sea. Suddenly, a goddess appeared and said that the girl seemed to be thinking too much. Isabel replied that the reapers are scared, so please let the unrivaled goddess Aida stay away. The woman replied that if she accepted her by kissing the mark, all doubts would disappear. The girl wondered how many days had already passed since she wanted to be accepted. After Aida said that she should take care of herself today, the girl asked if she meant that she should be careful in case intruders suddenly break in. Thanks for worrying. The goddess said that she is too naive. The one she should be careful with is the unfaithful Ephrax. Let him remember this. A woman sees for the first time a man who is so carefully preparing for his wedding night. If she has a hard time today, let him offer her a prayer. Our heroine understood that they had to do this since they were married. But would this really happen? The maid blushed and coughed, saying that they would help her get ready. Meanwhile, the young man was thinking that the butler was full of enthusiasm. He did not leave towels in the bathroom, which made him run after them. Kill asked if he would like to pretend to be poor for a day and walk around the village like that. Then all the dirty rumors would disappear in an instant. He is so big and handsome. Then the boy asked, "What about the outfit? Should he bring it or him?" But the guy replied that it was not necessary, everything was fine. He thought to himself that his wife wanted him to leave the bathroom, wearing only a towel, and to casually shake his hair while drying it. The demon said that although he did not hear a specific answer to the question, he had already guessed everything, so he would go on patrol. Left alone, the young man thought that he didn't know how Isabel would react, whether she would be scared if she showed up like this. Suddenly, Kill appeared shouting that he saw some people. It looked like someone had broken into their place. The young man immediately ran to his beloved, but when he opened the bathroom door, he saw pools of blood everywhere. This picture simply shocked the Duke. He didn't even know what to think, so he just froze in place. But suddenly, the voice of a girl was heard, who turned out to be safe and sound. She said that she grew up in the temple until she came of age, and when she opened her closet, she found a pile of clothes that you can only see in novels. She became curious and wanted to try everything on, but suddenly an uninvited guest appeared. The guy asked if she was okay. Whose blood was it? Then Isabel replied that she had let go of the maids of honor when suddenly she felt someone's presence. The girl was surprised to see a stranger, so she used ice magic and accidentally killed him. It turned out to be a very powerful ice spear. She was very sorry, then she dragged it into the bathtub because the ice began to melt. When they heard loud shouts and fuss, the young man said that they first needed to hide. Therefore, the boys quickly ran out and hid in the closet so that they would not be found. The Duke thought that the rage and obsession emanating from the attackers were quite unusual. After the use of magic, the signs of someone's presence were hidden to some extent. So now all they can do is wait for Kill and the other Reapers to solve this problem. The girl thought that if she thought about it, it had been a long time since she had seen Rix's face so close. If she had known earlier, despite the rumors that he suffered from impotence, she would have definitely tried to seduce him. When Lady Lator spoke of the Duke's beauty, she thought it was nonsense. But then she changed her mind and said out loud that the guy was simply beautiful. But she likes handsome men. He has such a muscular body. The young man said that she should not lower her hands any lower, since it was difficult for him to restrain himself. He is her husband, so she can touch him whenever she wants. But a little later, meanwhile on the street, a showdown was taking place between the Reapers and the intruders. Kill said that these guys had already invaded here very brazenly, after which he asked if his charges were okay. The boys burst into tears and replied that it was as if a ray of light had descended from heaven, so bright that they were about to cry. They don't have the best relations with the people from Vilsburg, but nevertheless, this time, everything worked out. These are ground forces, a special forces unit that received the patronage of the goddess Aida. Did the members of the Imperial family really send their people? This lady seems to be really related to this dynasty by blood. Suddenly the baby transformed into a young man and noted that the owner had temporarily released his powers and he would finally be able to have some real fun. After which he rushed into the attack, thinking that such abilities are poison for them. He will have to strain himself so that everything goes smoothly for the glory of the afterlife. Meanwhile, our heroine was thinking that she felt somehow strange how long they had to stay in such conditions. The guy said that their enemy was ground troops. They came to find her. Therefore, it is better not to encounter them as long as possible. It is better to stay here until Kill returns. The girl stated that it meant that these were Imperial soldiers, but why exactly her? Rix replied that they must have received orders from the Imperial family to bring her as a Vilsburg person, even if that is not exactly true. Since she is chosen by Aida, they will try to take her anyway. Our heroine began to guess that she was related to them by blood, which meant that her mother was one of them. Meanwhile, the commander said that given their movement plans, they should be somewhere nearby. Let them continue searching the floor as soon as they are found. They need to provide evidence that the lady is keeping Aida's tears, and then let them ensure her safety when asked if they should be obtained. The man replied that no, Isabel would continue to keep her tears. There was no point in angering the goddess. Our heroine was thinking about what tears did she really have anything like that. Then she looked at the necklace she had given the guy a long time ago and thought that it was quite valuable. The young man immediately asked what would happen if it remained with him. The girl replied that she didn't know anything. The guy said that he'd better take it. Then he started trying to take it off, but nothing worked. Isabel decided to help him, and the young man thought to himself that this would really drive them crazy. Suddenly, the closet doors swung open, and one of the knights discovered the boys. Without thinking twice, the young man immediately hit him so hard that he flew to the side, after which he told his wife not to worry, since he would protect her. The girl replied that everything was fine, since he could fight too. The commander immediately shouted for Cardiego to immediately release Mrs. Isabel. But the young man objected. Why don't they themselves get out of here right now? Our heroine stated that it was necessary to gain at least a minute of time since she had an idea. The Duke replied that it was good, because in any case, he thought they would not be able to come to an agreement. The girl whispered that the goddess had chosen her. The ground forces would not retreat from their goal. They are blinded by faith and will follow only the deity without question. So let Aida help her. A bright glow immediately appeared around our heroine, which was hard to miss. The ground troops immediately fell to their knees and shouted that before them was a real goddess. Aida advised Isabel to think about the divine image, let her speak in such a way as to preserve her dignity. When her little girl is fully revealed, it will work. After some time, the butler said that the fortress gates were safe. Nothing unusual. Not a single drop of blood. The main building was in order. So thank you all for your hard work. Their mistress, the Duchess, with her own forces, repelled the land forces. Their owners are romantics, passionate, ardent. They are about to have their first wedding night, so it's time to start. Kill also said that, let them do everything as it should be. Guys who are not responsible for any area, there is no need to hang around doing nothing. Meanwhile, the young man was again wandering around the room in a towel and blowing out candles, since they should not be there. Isabel had previously said that if there were candles in the bridal room, wouldn't it interfere with their concentration? So he did just that. It is also necessary to open the curtains to let the moonlight into the room. He has already shown her his muscular body, so the girl should feel the atmosphere. This should be enough for seduction. Suddenly, Isabel's voice was heard asking what he was doing. She didn't think she would come so soon. The guy even screamed in surprise. Then our heroine asked why he was still walking around with a towel around his waist. Maybe he just didn't have time to change his clothes or something like that. The young man replied that he was going to bed soon, and it was uncomfortable for him to get dressed, so he was wearing it. Looking him over from head to toe, the girl thought to herself that Rix didn't even suspect how dangerous she was. After which, she thought that there was nothing to be done. All that was left was to accept it and went to bed. It all seemed strange to her. At first she was very nervous before entering the room, but the moment she saw Cardiego, she caught her breath. When the guy lay down next to her, she began to wrap him in a sheet and say that he might catch a cold. The young man noted that she seemed to be in a good mood. The girl replied that she was in a terrific mood. Maybe it's because she accepted the power of the goddess. Our heroine is too tired after what happened, but lying like this with him is great. The Duke must have been tired too, as he had used the powers of the afterlife, incredibly strong and very reliable. The guy thought that this was exactly what he expected. He was sorry that she would not have the romance and passion that she wanted so much. But still he feels the warmth of Isabel, who falls asleep next to him, and it is much more pleasant than he thought. Suddenly, the girl jumped up and said that if he was so strong, then why did he allow the neighbor's children to beat him up? Maybe the crying was just a game? Cardiego replied, that isn't it common for children he liked that she gave him medicine. Our heroine immediately began to beat him and say that he had been deceiving her all this time, and she was so worried. The guy thought to himself that it hurt today. Her hands were even more piquant than usual. This could shake his stamina. If he were like all men, he would run out of the house in tears, but his endurance is amazing. So he took her with him. Isabel hissed that he really found it funny. Until now, she had put up with him pretending to be a commoner, but she was not going to put up with this. The young man screamed for her to let him go, but the girl told him to shut up and continued to hit him with the pillow. The servants who were standing at the door were shocked by the sounds coming from the bedroom. The next day, the maid set the table and told the mistress that this dish would help her regain her strength. Isabel asked what was wrong with Rix. Did he have no appetite or something? The guy thought to himself that it was all because of her. He couldn't fall asleep last night. Our heroine noticed that the atmosphere around her had somehow changed. The boy told the Duke that now he would be embarrassed to tell anyone that he had made a contract with him. The next night, the girl kept pushing and throwing her legs over him. Plus, our heroine periodically emitted a bright glow. So the boy went to sleep on the sofa and muttered the Cardiego family hymn. The majestic darkness, the grandeur of the afterlife. The fiery judgment will not stop the punishment. In the morning, the young man thought that Isabel's sleeping habits were simply terrible. But all the same, they make the young man happy, so everything is in perfect order. Suddenly, Kill appeared, who said that now he is a husband, who has fun bothering his wife. He can no longer talk about being his servant. It would be better if he really had problems with his lower body. The guy pulled him by the cheek and asked him what he was talking about. The boy asked him if he wasn't aware of the rumors going around. The young man was playing pranks all night. How many slaps he got? Does he really like it? The Duke thought that if new strange rumors appeared, then in principle it did not matter. Meanwhile, our heroine saw the blue energy and realized that it must be here. After which she knocked and asked if there was anyone there. Isabel came to Mrs. Aida. After breakfast, the girl heard something from the reapers that surprised her. The boys said that the goddess was crying. They thought that she was imprisoned in the necklace of the lady. But the deity took on a visible form and came straight from heaven. They say that last night, the butler found her after the evacuation was over. She was in tears. Therefore she asked for forgiveness and said that she did not know that Isida had come down from heaven. In human form, let him accept the bouquet of lilies that she brought. Suddenly the door swung open, and the woman's appearance was indeed very sad. The goddess said that Isabel was extremely insensitive towards her. The girl once again asked for forgiveness and said that she did not mean to offend. The deity added that he wanted her to know that it had cost her some effort to appear here. How could she even introduce herself as a goddess and make such a speech? Our heroine asked for forgiveness and realized that she had spoiled the image of the deity. Isabel thought she had to look strong, so she then told the ground forces to leave the Duke alone. Seeing tears in her eyes, Isida exclaimed that there was no need to cry. Apparently, she raised her voice a little. Isn't she glad she accepted her power? The woman admits she was harsh in her remarks. Our heroine asked if this meant that she forgave her. The goddess replied that yes, she was merciful enough, so she accepted her apology. Let him calm down already, and look at these butterflies, aren't they beautiful? Then she took out the blue stones and said that she needed to be told something. When she left it and went to bathe, Isida picked it up where the ground troops passed. Such precious stones are called stones of succession. With their help, the woman distinguishes the Wilsberg bloodlines that have received her blessing. The necklace she wears is called the Tears of Isida. It has the ability to control magic. Isabel must know that she has taken care not to be found in Wilsberg. Now let her place her necklace on the stone of succession. As soon as our heroine did this, a strange magical reaction began to occur. The girl felt pain that pierced her entire body, and the seconds seemed like an eternity. Isabel didn't understand what it was. At first it hurt, and then it became so easy as if she had been freed from something. After this, the goddess told the girl to try to create a small spark. As soon as the peacefully conversing reapers passed by the door, huge tongues of flame appeared from there, which gradually turned into a huge fire tornado which almost touched them. The young people screamed in horror as they did not understand what was happening at all. After some time, Isabel apologized for causing them a lot of trouble. The boys replied that there was no need to worry about it. They were glad that she was not hurt. After which, the guys began to discuss that the lady has the strongest magic, she is the best. Our heroine sighed heavily and asked if this was due to her influence. Izida replied that due to contact with the stone of succession, the seal was removed from her necklace. This is the power of direct descendants. It was given to her from birth. When the girl said that if she was a direct descendant of the imperial family, then her parents, the goddess, interrupted and continued that Vilsburg XII with his wife. Isabel asked why this was happening to her. She just couldn't understand. Why did the goddess choose the unfaithful girl? Why did her parents give her up to be raised in the temple? Izida wondered what the consequences would be, how much she should tell her about this terrible and great plan. After which, the deity sat closer to her and said that it was difficult for her to trust people. Our heroine objected that this does not contradict the Holy Scriptures. The woman replied that she cares about people and tries to protect them, but in the end, they always disappoint her, especially Vilsburg. She will no longer bless them and came only to protect her, since Isabel is the last of the descendants who received her blessing. But Izida does not know what awaits the girl in the future, so she can find out from her everything she wants. She will not hide the truth, no matter what she asks. Our heroine wondered if she was trying to scare us, or if her gloomy appearance was evidence that she really was that cruel. Meanwhile, the deity remembered the little girl, who said that the meaning of her name was blessed by the goddess. Did Izida know about it? After a while, she turned into a girl who said that she would never get married. She wanted to stay with her all her life. While pregnant, she screamed that she was so worried while looking for her, where she was when she begged to kill her future husband. Our heroine said that she is interested in two things: whether her parents are alive and why they abandoned her. The woman replied that she knew she was a curious child, but why wasn't she interested in her own history? After some time, the girl walked down the corridor and thought about how she felt that they were already dead. The goddess said that Isadora, her mother, did not abandon her, but tried to hide her. This was done under her protection. The woman loved her daughter more than anything in the world, and she still cannot forget her words. She said that she was sending her daughter to another place because she loved her very much. After hearing everything and being overwhelmed with emotions, Isabel couldn't take it anymore and just burst into tears. Suddenly, a young man appeared and asked what had happened, why she was crying. The girl burst into tears even more in his arms and said that her parents had died, but her mother loved her until the very end. After some time, the guy asked if she had calmed down. He understood that the goddess told her about her parents. The girl replied that she did not know whether her words were true, but it turned out that she had not been abandoned. This fact was sweeter than any consolation, as if the ice in her heart had melted. The young man said that he did not think she was lying. Isabel added that Izida promised to answer all her questions, and she couldn't have wished for more. If we are to believe what is said in the sacred scriptures, the goddess values the continuity of the Vilsburg line above all else. The girl learned what she didn't want to know. Was there even one reason why she should sacrifice her body and soul for Vilsburg? The guy replied that everything was fine. Just let her do what her heart tells her. Everything will be fine, and if problems arise, they will deal with them together. Our heroine was very pleased with such words and support, after which they hugged each other tightly. The guy added that he was glad that she finally found out about her family, about her mother. Isabel was so sweet, and he was sure that the woman loved her very much. Meanwhile, Royan was freaking out why there was no news. 15 days had already passed, and they still didn't know anything. The ward asked for forgiveness and said that they were experiencing a shortage of hands because the ground troops had deserted. The man was furious because they had missed such a chance as the wedding day of the Duke of Cardiego, and an elite unit from all the ground forces had been sent. Moreover, they did not lose the battle, but simply decided to abandon the task. Absolutely all of them, not a single one remained. What did they see in the Cardiego mansion this morning that scared the strongest fighters so much? Then he ordered that one of the deserters, who had been captured, be brought to him for personal interrogation. Royan asked a young man named Cain whether he was a believer. The young man replied that yes, from generation to generation, they serve the goddess Izida. The man noted to himself that it turned out that he had not deserted because of hatred for the deity. Then she said that 15 days ago, he was sent to the Duchy of Cardiego. Let him tell him the whole truth about what happened. If he decides to do this, then he will not punish him in the name of the goddess Izida. The guy replied that it seemed like a dream. Blue butterflies were flying around. It looked like it was an illusion. Sunlight was penetrating through their glass-like wings. When asked where the butterflies came from, perhaps the goddess had revealed herself, Cain replied that yes, she was with Isabel. The man muttered that it was true, because this woman was a direct descendant of Vilsburg. The goddess treasured her. Let him describe their interaction in more detail. The young man replied that butterflies were reflected in her blue eyes, and there was a magic circle on the floor. He had never seen one like that before. When the lady spoke, her voice was exactly like that of a goddess. She said that they were her little lambs, nothing more. And everything disappeared after the girl fell silent. The soldiers of the ground forces were touched by the words of the goddess, so they dropped everything and went home. Having heard all this, Royan ordered him to be placed in a ward for the mentally ill. The boy shouted that he had promised him freedom and had sworn in the name of the goddess that he would not punish him. Suddenly, a voice came from the brooch, asking whether he was really happy that he had lost a soldier. The man replied that he had no reason to be sad. The goddess Aida had descended for the sake of Isabel Vilsburg. If this woman gave birth to a son for him, then he would definitely become emperor. The voice replied that yes, only if they did not prohibit inbreeding, but wasn't. She already married to Cardiego. Royan replied that they both knew it didn't matter. If she learns of the terrible massacre committed by the Duke, she will hate herself for becoming his wife, and perhaps even be touched by his mercy when he saves her from the clutches of the Ephorics. Therefore, the young man is looking forward to the Imperial conference. Meanwhile, in the Rieslin residence, the young man was freaking out that in Vilsburg there was complete confusion with the succession to the throne, so he, young Rieslin, was supposed to be the next emperor. But this Cardiego challenged the previous emperor and even took possession of a woman with white hair and blue eyes. The girl asked her brother to calm down and said that nothing would happen. The young man replied that Iris was only attached to the castle and did not seem to understand how serious this situation was, although she did know what it was like to be the head of this family. The sister exclaimed that Cardiego was married, so he should calm down. The young man looked at the newspaper and noted that she had a rather cute face, and besides, she seemed familiar to him, after which he told Iris to read the information about this woman and her future. The girl replied that it is difficult to obtain information about a person with whom she has never had contact. The guy grabbed her by the hair and said that he became the head of the family, so he must show what he is capable of. They must succeed before the start of the Imperial conference. Meanwhile, our heroine was training with the goddess, who told her that she had to conjure up enough water to extinguish the fire she had created. Literally a moment later, the girl was already able to summon some amount of water. The young man watched his wife's success from the window and was very happy for her. He thought that she was finally getting better, because he thought that the Aida story had broken her heart. It was hard to come to terms with the fact that her parents had died overnight. Then he suddenly felt unwell because of the pile of papers on the table, and noted that, as usual, he was beside himself because of the Imperial conference. Once a year, the influential people of the empire hold a meeting in a place where they can stay for a few days and discuss politics. Also, their wives and children are invited to this event. This is a tradition that cannot be broken. It turns out that Isabel, who became a duchess, should be present, but he is worried about the current situation. It's hard to say what else people who weren't shy about breaking into the castle on the wedding day are capable of, but you can't ignore the invitation. Then the guy noticed the letter and asked. When it arrived, Bill said that it was delivered this morning. Most likely it was from the emperor. Rick said it said that His Imperial Majesty was not in good health and therefore could not attend the conference. After which he told the butler to send letters to the nobles with a proposal to hold a meeting with them. There is still time, so there should be no problems with changing the venue. Besides the person who proposed this idea is the next emperor. In such a situation, families who refuse to attend will be put in an awkward position. The young man asked the man if he was interested in how they would get out of this. Bill replied that he was very curious to hear if the person who organized the attack on Cardiego would come forward. He thought to himself that their opponent was the Vilsburg family, but there was nothing to worry about since its owner could ascend to the throne any minute. Meanwhile, our heroine looked at the bill and asked in shock, "Isn't it too expensive?" The women replied that it wasn't just about the price. She was so naive. Just a cutie they had, of course, heard that she was from the common people, but how she still wasn't used to this. What's the big deal? Nothing to worry about. Just 200 dresses. Why not buy 10 sets of jewelry as well? Isabel thought to herself that in novels at moments like these, Misunderstandings usually begin between the main character and her partner. The woman said that her name was Susan, that she was responsible for the design of her dress, and that it was a great honor for her. The girl didn't understand why she was shaking, probably because it was the first time Cardiego trusted anything to strangers. So she replied that she had heard that she was a talented seamstress. So thank you for looking into their castle. While examining the dress, the maid asked for forgiveness, as she had not taken care of everything properly. She still needs to learn how to choose suitable outfits. But suddenly, a goddess appeared, pushing the maid aside and heading towards Isabel. Then she chose a dress in which blue was the predominant color and asked why she didn't try it on. Then she grabbed a few more and sent her to the fitting room. The seamstress and the maid did not understand what kind of lady she was. Our heroine noticed that Rose was pushed to the side, and it seemed that she hit the wall a little. Apparently, the goddess has a special love for people, but she does not like it. When Isabel is surrounded by strangers, she believes that only one guardian deity should be enough for her. A woman interrupted their conversation and asked to look at one of the new dresses. It is made exactly in the style of Cardiego. The seamstress created this design when she was thinking about preparing for the Imperial conference. Our heroine noted to herself that it was simply magnificent and immediately tried it on. The outfit was completely ready. The sizes were perfect. No flaws. Rix must have told them her parameters in advance. And in general, he chose all these people himself. After which she asked if those present would mind if she went away to her husband. For a minute, she really wanted to say that she liked his gift. Then she noticed that the young man was standing to the side and asked when he had managed to come at all. But the young man did not answer, and when she came closer to him, he turned away. Then Isabel asked if he really didn't like the dress. Cardiego answered that, no. Our heroine asked the question, what? Then why is he looking down? What is the matter, anyway? The young man replied that he was not looking because he could not, but it suited her very well, and the girl exclaimed that she liked it too. After some time, Viscount Letter begged the Duke to have mercy on him. The guy replied that he had given him a chance many times when he had misappropriated the budget, when he had started double-entry bookkeeping, and even when his daughter had spread rumors about him. Rix had remained calm all the time. But now the man will be able to speak out only in hell, after which he killed the man. Bill asked his lordship why he decided to do it himself, since it was enough to give them the order. The young man remembered Viscount's words that the scale of the wedding taking place now would be suitable for a future or current empress, but not for a commoner. Also how Lily spoke of Isabel, namely that she was an ugly woman with a smooth face who had no relatives to care for her. Therefore he replied that both the father and the daughter had behaved extremely arrogantly, and henceforth he would independently punish people who disturbed his wife. In the carriage, the young man asked how the preparations for the Imperial conference were going. The butler replied that everything was just perfect, and that the lady was also doing excellently. She began to study the etiquette necessary to be appropriate to her title as Duchess of Cardiego, and spent a considerable amount of time memorizing the names and family information of the imperial nobility. The young man smiled and thought to himself that he had never doubted Isabel, but one problem remained unresolved. Bill asked if he was worried about who would help the lady. Rix replied that yes, during the meeting, he would not be able to be with her all the time. He needed a noble lady who would help his wife while he was away. The butler asked what his lordship thought about the Celeste family. This is a knightly family that has served the House of Cardiego for generations. They are like the shield of this dynasty, loyal enough to follow the Duke anywhere. The young man asked if the Count's daughter was currently in the capital. Studying the man replied that she had returned to the duchy a year ago. The boy thought to himself that quite a long time had passed since the seal was removed. It was time to make amends with Isabel, after which he ordered to organize a place where the two of them could meet casually. The next day, our heroine sat and studied families and who had what coat of arms. Raislin, one of the three great families of the empire, they inherited the divine powers of purification and foresight. Duchess Iris Raislin has the ability to see into the future. Her twin brother Yang Risaline has purification magic. Usually only one of the children has this ability. So this is a very unusual case. Suddenly, a maid looked into the room and announced that it was time for the mistress to get ready to go out. While Isabel was dressing, the maid noted that she reads about the nobility every day. Although she had long since memorized everything, The girl replied that she was afraid that everything might get confused in her head, so she repeated herself. But was it true that she shouldn't worry about anything? Rose replied that yes, it was just a party. Let her enjoy it in a comfortable environment. Count Grey unfortunately has no children, but he does not like it when the mansion is empty. That is why she regularly organizes tea parties for young nobles. They generally thought that she would not go since she was very busy these days. Our heroine replied that in fact she had asked her husband to arrange a dinner for them. She needed to meet the Cardiego nobles before receiving serious guests. All the maids were touched that she was so attentive and almost started to shed tears. The girl thought to herself that they were behaving exactly like the nuns in the monastery. Where did Sister Maria go? Why hasn't anyone been able to find even a trace of her? Having gone downstairs, the girl asked what all the noise was going on in the street, why it was so lively. The knight and the maid reported that an unexpected situation had occurred. It turned out that Aida was standing in front of the carriage, calling the Cardiego servants arrogant, and saying that her Isabel was going to a party. So why couldn't she, the goddess of this child, be with her? The maid replied that if the deity followed her, the mistress would be in trouble. The woman hissed that she was a reaper serving an unfaithful master. Her Isabel, unlike her, a child who knew what obedience was. How could they say that she would cause her trouble? Our heroine appeared and asked what was going on here and what the goddess was doing. Aida rushed to hug her and said that she would go with her to the party. She wanted to see the place where people gather, exchange love and laughter, but the girl replied that uninvited guests could not be present at the party. While the deity was still in shock, the knight added that there was not even room in the carriage in the future. He would definitely prepare everything for her too. The woman began to lament that if she had had even a little of her divine power left, she would not have had to endure this humiliation. Then she abruptly headed towards Rose, called her a faithful reaper, and said that the goddess needed her clothes. She was grateful in advance for her sacrifice. A moment later, the maid panicked that she was wearing a white dress, and Aida said that she could provide Isabel's protection to her. She could handle it better than anyone else. Our heroine watched this whole circus from the sidelines and didn't even know what to say about it. Suddenly, a young man appeared and asked what was going on there, but later he figured it out himself. After some time, the young people finally arrived at the celebration. They were met by a butler who said that they were greatly honored that the Duke and Duchess of Cardiego had graced their event with their presence. This is a place intended exclusively for communication. It seems that this is the first time they have attended such an event. Rix replied that it just happened from now on. He and his wife will appear more often. Then the Count approached them and asked his lordship to spare him 1 minute. He was talking about the Imperial conference. Our heroine replied that everything was fine. Let him go and come back quickly. Looking around, the girl thought that everyone who is related by blood to the Cardiego family usually has dark hair and eyes. She remembered Gray talking about the Duke's uncle, who was now dead, but she would have the opportunity to hear more about it later. This is something new for her, since the Cardiego are quite a mysterious family. She knows nothing about them, but this is her husband's family. Therefore, she must fulfill her mission at this conference brilliantly, namely to declare herself as the Duchess of Cardiego and to learn more about the Rix pedigree. The girls said that it was a great honor for them to greet the Duchess. She looked even more beautiful than at the wedding. The rumors are not lying. Isabel is truly dazzling. Swan Brooks and Bailey for such words. Meanwhile, those present began to whisper that she had finally arrived, and they wondered what she would look like today. When the girl appeared, they noted that, as always, magnificently at such a young age, she was already quite well known in social circles. Our heroine thought to herself that this must be Elizabeth Celeste. The daughter of the Count, and her family is known as the Cardiego Shield. Until now, they lived in the capital, but recently Rix said that for no reason, they moved to Cardiego. Then she heard the guests saying that the Duchess should be vigilant, for she looked too soft, and Elizabeth was the daughter of a count who held fast to the high society of the duchy. Suddenly a female voice was heard saying that young people are often too energetic. But the problem is not this, but being able to cope with it even when you don't like something. It was Countess Grey who asked if she could sit next to her. Isabel replied that of course she could. The woman said that she believed that she already knew that Countess Celeste was the shield of Cardiego. Elizabeth was the youngest in the family. She was lively even from childhood, and she coped with defensive arts even better than her brothers. The girl noted that she seemed to be very talented. The Countess replied that indeed, she was also famous for her clear mind. Then our heroine noticed that the entire crowd present was divided into two parts. The Countess continued that Celeste's dignity lies in the fear of other young ladies in front of her. There are rumors that the ladies' assistants exert considerable pressure on their subjects. She has never seen this herself, so there is no confirmation, but rumors continue to multiply. When our heroine wanted to meet her gaze, the girl abruptly turned away, after which I decided to come closer in order to say hello to her. The guests immediately began to whisper that she was not going to bow before the Duchess. Apparently it was shameful for her to bow her head before a noble lady of dubious origin. Perhaps there would be a battle. Isabel thought to herself that everyone was so excited and expecting something serious to happen now. The girl introduced herself and said that her name was Elizabeth Celeste, after which she drilled our heroine with a not particularly friendly look. Those present were surprised that she could look at a noble lady like that, and that she even allowed herself to do so. Isabel thought to herself that she clearly looked tense. Her hands were clenched into fists. So she was right, the girl was a fawn. After a while, Elizabeth accidentally overheard two women talking about how they had never seen such a harmless smile. Perhaps it means submission, because Lady Cardiego has no experience of communication. Sipping wine on the terrace, the girl thought about what it was. Those clear eyes that shone so strangely. The Duchess seemed such a terrible person. The high society frightened her from the very beginning. The magnificent appearance is only a cover created in order to survive in this terrible place. She thought that misunderstandings of this kind had already become habitual for her. Suddenly, on the huge, shining moon, she seemed to see the image of our heroine. Elizabeth was very scared, and in surprise, dropped a glass of wine on the floor, which immediately broke. The door was immediately opened by an agitated assistant who asked what had happened. The girl asked, what if the Duchess had misunderstood her? What if this accidentally reached the Duke? Rena replied that their poor little Lizzie was still afraid of his lordship. Celeste replied that their family had already disturbed his peace of mind once, and now that they had been freed from punishment and were no longer suspended from the affairs of the duchy, they did not want to anger him again. 6 years ago, there was an incident involving two drunken, low-ranking knights of her family who harassed a young girl at a festival. The father was furious when he learned of what had happened. He punished both of them and ordered the Master of the Order to strictly monitor the discipline of the knights. But the Celeste family had to pay a huge price. The girl whom the knights pestered turned out to be the one Cardiego truly treasured. She was little, but she forever remembered this image of his lordship, his gaze and the sight of blood pouring onto the floor. If a girl somehow interferes with a woman of such a person, then it will not end well. The maid began to try to calm her down and said that she brought her favorite book. Let her read it. It turned out to be a book called Madam Will Not Be Lonely at Night, so the girl was happy and thanked Rena. The woman thought to herself that people had always made fun of Lizzie, so fragile and beautiful, because of her excessive kindness. But this time, she was suffering because of the Duchess. It seems that Isabel is not so simple suddenly. Because of all these nerves, their little girl will get sick. Therefore, she exclaimed that there was no need to worry. She would protect her, sparing no effort. She will no longer allow the Duchess to approach her mistress and cause pain. Suddenly, our heroine appeared, saying that she believed that Lizzie was a diminutive of the name Elizabeth. The girl screamed in surprise that the lady was on this terrace. Isabel asked if she could call her Lizzie too. Celeste replied that it was as her mistress wished. Our heroine noted to herself that she, like Rix, has a doe-like look, which seems to be common at Cardiego. After which, she said that she didn't even suspect that she was afraid of social events. The girl objected that she wasn't afraid. Isabel said, what if she reported that she heard their whole conversation? Everything except that Elizabeth is afraid of his lordship, Duke Cardiego. Then asked if she would like to try some cake, but Lizzie replied that she didn't eat sweets late at night. Our heroine then suggested taking a little walk, because at this time of year, the roses bloom beautifully. But Celeste objected that she was allergic to flowers. Isabel asked what they should do now. In that case, what should they do? Suddenly, the girl said that she must learn to mentally build barriers and reliably hide behind them. What is in her heart, she should never show her weaknesses to anyone. Our heroine smiled sweetly and stated that she cares about her, thank her for that. Elizabeth was at first confused, But then she thought that she must not lose her vigilance and must pull herself together. Then she said that it was an honor to talk to her and was about to leave, but the book slipped from her hands and fell right in front of Isabel, opening to the page with the title. Celeste immediately blushed as she felt awkward and began to convulsively lift it. Our heroine exclaimed that the second part had really already come out. She hadn't read it yet. Meanwhile, the servants and Aida watched the celebration from the balcony. The guys were a little worried as they did not understand whether they could just stand and watch such a peaceful event generally causes anxiety. Suddenly a woman appeared and asked if the young men could spare her a minute. At the sight of the girls, the guests began to discuss what she had done to disarm Lady Celeste. The Duchess must have discussed everything with her on the balcony. I wonder what they were talking about that made them look happy. They couldn't have been discussing politics. Meanwhile, Rena stated that she had heard that the boys were spreading bad news about Lady Elizabeth, who had ordered them to do so. She thought to herself that from now on, the Duchess was part of high society, so new meetings with her mistress were inevitable. If any conflict occurs between them, they will turn everything around so that her Lizzie will be forbidden to even approach Isabel. However, from what she saw, the Duchess was not the type to punish the entire family for the misdeeds of one servant, so her plan had a chance of success. If she, as the mistress's servant, starts a quarrel with the Duchess's servants, she will certainly die at the hands of the Duke's henchmen. Then the relationship between Isabel and Lizzie will become tense. The Duke's wife will feel awkward in the company of the lady. Weighed down by this feeling, she will avoid Celesta, and then Miss will be able to calmly enjoy social society as before. The woman was happy to serve her mistress, but now they will check who will be right in the argument. After which she declared that she was going to give them a couple of slaps for insulting her mistress if they just left. Then the whole world would find out that they were spreading bad rumors. Who will be the first to stand up for the honor of their mistress? The boys did not understand what was happening at all, and muttered that she must be very strong. The goddess replied that she would be the first, she is such a faithful servant. Her willingness to put herself in danger for the sake of her mistress is simply admirable. It pleases her to see her enduring hardships for the sake of those she serves. If she so wishes, then Aida will allow her to do so. Let him slap her on the cheek. The woman thought that if he hit her, then it seemed that eternal damnation awaited her. How could she serve as a simple maid, who was this Duchess anyway? Isabel was much more dangerous than Rena thought. After which she exclaimed that she seemed to be mistaken and quickly ran away. Meanwhile, the young man thought that he had sent a letter to Celeste's family in advance, but it would be nice to meet the lady in person. I wonder if his wife would like her. But unexpectedly she saw them in the window. Together the girls were walking and chatting nicely about something. When did they even manage to get to know each other? The Count noticed that something was wrong and asked whether the conference had not been particularly successful. The young man replied that there was no need to worry about it. It was a good job, and now it was time for him to go. Then the young man quickly rushed to Isabel and thought to himself that she should not smile like that at her new acquaintance. Meanwhile, Lizzie said that if she liked, "I did it because I loved you. She thinks I did it because I hated you," will also be to her taste. Our heroine thanked her and said that she would definitely read what she recommended to her. Celeste remembered that the book was out of print, so she offered to lend hers. After which, she said that she was surprised that she liked such books. It seemed to her that such literature would never interest someone like her. When asked why she thought so, the girl answered that at least her status and some other things indicate this. Our heroine asked if this was because of rumors about her husband's health problems. She thought to herself that these far-fetched gossips had greatly affected his reputation as a wife. She must defend her husband's honor, so she replied that she understood well what she wanted to say. She did not need to be afraid. Elizabeth replied that she of course also knew these rumors. She thought that she would never dare to speak about it. When asked who told her about this, the girl replied that she personally witnessed the scene after which the rumor spread. Isabel was shocked by what she heard. Did she really see with her own eyes what caused such lewd rumors about Rix to spread? But Celeste asked for forgiveness, for she had disturbed her in vain by mentioning the mighty power of his lordship. Our heroine decided to clarify whether the rumor she spoke of concerned the Duke's power. Lizzie replied that yes, and that there are some others apparently she doesn't know something. After which it dawned on her what our heroine was thinking, and Elizabeth was suddenly horrified. Then she began to babble that she had never seen anything like this, since returning to the Duchy of Cardiego, and that today was the first time she had ever met his lordship. Isabel thought to herself that no matter how sloppy Rix was, he wouldn't show himself in front of women without pants, and then replied that it was a false rumor from the beginning. Even she, living in the temple all her life, observing chastity, almost crossed the line, the passion of his words. "I love you" cannot be compared with anything. She would never have gotten married just because of something like that, but you really shouldn't believe the nonsense rumors. But for some reason, her husband sleeps in his clothes, and this worries her a little. But she didn't have time to finish the sentence. Suddenly a guy appeared who said that he didn't know that his wife almost crossed the line thanks to Lady Celeste. He heard something nice. The young man then said that it seemed that Lizzie had found out a lot about him in the past, but she shouldn't worry, he wouldn't touch his wife's friend. Our heroine poked him with her elbow and asked him to be more friendly. Why was he speaking with such a serious look? After which, the young man smiled slightly and said that he was counting on her at the Imperial conference. Elizabeth was still afraid and felt extremely awkward, but she replied that of course. After which, she turned to Isabel and said that thanks to the Duke's grace, she would be by her side at the upcoming Imperial conference. Our heroine replied that everything was fine if she didn't want to. Then she shouldn't force herself because of Rick's request. The girl replied that before communicating with her, she would have to do it by force, but now she wants it herself. The woman thought that the miss had completely lost her vigilance. Was it because the Duchess had interested her so much? Rena must have misunderstood everything. Then she glanced at the goddess who was smiling, and a bright light was emanating from her. The boys thought that when they returned, they would need to buy sunburn ointment. On the way, Isabel thought about how Lizzie was definitely afraid of Rix. This story stems from the fact that in the past, he had to confront his uncle. They say that battles for supremacy in aristocratic families often end tragically. The young man took her hand and asked if something was bothering her. The girl replied that yes, she had some questions, but she thought to herself that these must be bad memories for Rix, and she didn't want to accidentally hurt him, so she replied that she would ask later. The guy asked her to promise that if she was interested in something, she should ask it as it is. He wanted her to hear the answers from him and not from strangers. Isabel replied that okay, next time she would do exactly that. He didn't have to pretend like he was going to cry. Then she asked what she should do if he started crying, after he said that he saw a woman in her. He must have had a hard time today. The boy replied that it was hard because everyone was looking at him. Isabel asked if he wanted some hot tea when they got back, but Rick said that he should just stay with him, that would be enough. Meanwhile, Iris was going to look into the future and the past in order to learn more about our heroine. She said that this girl is not a noblewoman. She seems to have grown up in the temple, and her name is Isabel. Suddenly, the seer began to be struck by electric discharges, preventing her from learning anything further. When the boy asked what was going on, the sister replied that she couldn't read it. Brother hissed that she was completely useless. She didn't even try. It was because she was afraid that she would get hurt or something, because he told her not to feel sorry for herself. Maybe she forgot. Then he grabbed her by the hair and hissed that yesterday he spent the whole day outside the house, trying to calm his anger, and now he was back. And here, this is what the girl was doing all this time. The inherited heavenly powers will disappear once she leaves Rislin Castle. If she wants to be able to see the world and remain unharmed, she has only one choice. To be near the Ephorics, who use the released power of Aida. His power will stabilize her. When Iris tried to object that he was already married, the young man hit her and shouted that there was no need to talk nonsense. How dare she refer to such a pathetic reason? This woman is of low birth. Everyone will soon forget about her, and then her place will belong to her sister. He will personally be present at the Imperial conference to achieve this. The sister will remain in this room for a few days. Since she cannot see anything, it means she does not control her powers properly. Let her try better. Iris thought to herself that they couldn't harm this girl in any way. She was under reliable protection. Meanwhile, Royan was riding in a carriage and holding the Empress's key in his hands. The voice asked him if he thought that this little thing would help him to win over the Duchess of Cardiego to his side. The man replied that what woman would refuse to run away from a disgusting guy and become the mother of a future emperor? After which, he asked Buis Cardiego what it was like to return to his native duchy after a long time, when the day would come when the Imperial conference would take place there. Then he looked at the Cardiego estate through the window and said that, no matter how you look at it, there is no place there for the Isilda blessed representative of Philsburg. Meanwhile, the butler checked how the servants had cleaned up and said that this was the best that could be thought up for receiving guests, after which he announced that the preparation of the interior of the mansion was complete, and he would leave the rest to kill. The boy stated that all the entrances to the estate were cleared again. The reapers said wearily that they never thought they would use death scythes as picks to split rocks. The kid asked irritably what he was hearing. Were they really going to whine? The boys answered that, of course not. One of the young men asked what to do with these boulders, what he thought about it, whether they could just be thrown into the forest. The boy replied that it was impossible. Let all three place the stones that they dug up on that road over there. The boys objected that then the carts and carriages would not be able to drive along it normally, and if the coachman was not careful enough, a wheel might break and they would get stuck in the middle of the road. Kill replied that Royan, who had previously sent land troops for Isabel, would arrive by this road, and after his brother, who had been given so much trouble, learned of this, they would go on leave with a reward. In addition, the boys immediately ran to get to work, shouting that their master was very smart. That was what age and experience meant. They needed to work hard. They would make his carriage shake like crazy. At this time, our heroine asked the butler to correct her, please, if she messed something up. After which he began to say that the conference would last about 2 weeks. People would start arriving from today. Even if someone was delayed on the way, they would arrive no later than in 3 days. The guests will be accommodated in the annex and in a separate palace, and luxurious rooms have been prepared for the representatives of the 3 main families in the main palace, and they will have a small formal dinner tomorrow. When all the preparations were completed, the girl thought to herself that the main part of the meeting was in 3 days. The key topic of discussion would be the appointment of the next emperor. He must be arriving soon, too. The central figure of the Vilsburg line, the man who is seeking the position of the new emperor and of her blood, namely Royan. He probably already knows that our heroine is a direct descendant of Vilsburg, the man who even sent elite ground troops to catch her. I wonder if he has something planned this time, too. Even if not, she can't help herself and perceives him as nothing less than an enemy. Suddenly, the voice of a young man was heard calling out to her. Isabel immediately thought to herself that she was not alone. She had support and encouragement. Rix Cardiego is her partner, who will always be by her side and protect her. Suddenly, he was informed that the reaper who guards the watchtower had sent word that the carriage of Royan Vilsburg, along with its escort, had just passed through the front gate. The young man replied that since the duchy was receiving such guests for the first time, they should make sure that everything was in order. After which they went out to the central entrance to greet the arriving guests. Looking at him, Isabel thought that of those she had met before, no one was like her as much as he was. Why does the man who sent people to kill her look into her eyes so calmly? The man immediately thanked them for inviting him into the Holy of Holies of the Duchy of Cardiego. He also greets the new mistress, Duchess Isabel. His name is Royan Vilsburg. He arrived as a representative of this family on behalf of His Majesty the Emperor. The man heard that she had recently been attacked under mysterious circumstances. He is very sorry. Such misfortunes will not happen during the Imperial conference. Vilsburg will not allow this to happen. Rix hugged her and said that they were glad to welcome the guests. Rooms were prepared for them in the main palace. They must be tired from the journey, so please let them rest well. After they left, the young man said that his wife had behaved very well. The guests began to arrive in a continuous line, following the Vilsburg carriage to the Cardiego mansion. The young people greeted more and more new faces all day long. When the goddess combed her hair in the evening, our heroine said that she had no need to do this. But Aida objected that she should not even say such a thing. Combing her silver hair was one of her little hobbies. The girl thought to herself that she was very glad that she had been very busy all day today. But this man did not leave her mind similar to her to such an extent that anyone would believe that they were brother and sister. Of course, she herself never thought of him in that way. At least she knew what to expect. Then she said that he was the one who tried to kill his own cousin, and yet when he looked at her, his gaze was full of confidence. Thank you very much to the goddess that she stays by her side. But now Isabel feels much better. So everything is fine. Let her go, since she also needs rest. Going out into the corridor, the woman bumped into Cardiego and said that she herself was not happy about it, but she had to ask him to lend her strength. The guy replied that he would not do this, because in any case he belonged entirely to his wife. The deity looked sadly after him, and thought to herself that people always make her helpless. When the young man entered the bedroom, he heard Isabel crying. The young man immediately brought her some water and told her to drink a little. The girl was surprised when he managed to come, after which he said that now her moisture reserves were replenished, so she could cry until she felt better. Our heroine burst into tears and said that she was not Vilsberg. They threw her out, and the girl was needed by me too. However, as soon as they needed something, they immediately found it, which is different from using anything. Rick said that he understood her feelings. She was so eager to find out the secret of her origin, and in the end, this happened. Isabel replied that it was just terrible. This family had nothing to do with her, and there was no place in the whole world where she could return. The young man asked her if she really thought so, but the girl replied that no, from now on, only he existed for her. Her only relatives see her as just a naive girl that they can use as they want. When she thinks about it, she gets scared from the realization that he is the only one on her side. She has no one else. The young man stroked her hair and asked if he alone wasn't enough for her. The guy doesn't want to leave room for others, but wants her to need only him. He doesn't need anyone but her when she cries. The only one who knows how to calm her down is him. After which the young man leaned even closer to our heroine and kissed her hard. Meanwhile, Kil was doing everything he could to prevent Royan from sleeping, and was thinking that he was still holding up well. Aida said that he throws the ball quite well. Let him not stop and torment him with nightmares. She will tirelessly collect them. The kid asked if everything was okay, because this man prayed to her before going to bed. The goddess replied that she had already decided to become the god Isabel didn't. He see how she cried because of him. Moreover, in Royan's prayers, there was not the slightest hint of respect for her. So don't be afraid. Let him not be shy and throw as many nightmares at him as his heart desires. As a child, when Isabel was sad, she often sat alone on the stairs, and sometimes she would deliberately cry loudly, after which the sisters came hugged and kissed her tightly. When her knees were bruised, when her soul became sad, such a small gesture as a kiss on the cheek took on special meaning. The girl understood that she was important to them, which is why she often kissed her friend in the same way she wanted to comfort the sad fawn. But what then does this kiss that is happening now mean? Looking into her eyes, the young man noted that she had already stopped crying. Our heroine was embarrassed, didn't know how to behave, so she told him to go to bed already since it was too late. The young man replied that it was fine, let him call him if he needed anything. Isabel lay and thought about how Royan Vilsberg had suddenly ceased to be a problem. At the moment, she couldn't get the thought out of her head that she had kissed her childhood friend. Then she realized that their relationship could not move to a new level so quickly. She needed to be careful. After which, she approached the young man and abruptly pulled the sheet off him. Cardiego tried to cover himself and said that this cannot be done. Our heroine immediately began to remember all the books she had read earlier, after which she said that this is not what she meant. The guy replied that okay, then let her give him the blanket. Isabel stuttered that she needed to go wash up and quickly ran away. The Duke was thinking about how she had first told him to sleep on the sofa, and now she had run away from him altogether. She seems to feel uncomfortable in his presence, perhaps because she has realized that he is a man. If this is so, then why did she try to pull the blanket off the man early in the morning? Didn't she understand what she would see underneath it? After some time, Aida reported that it seemed that Royan would not be able to attend the dinner. It seemed that he had trouble sleeping due to nightmares just like a child. Then she asked if she as her goddess could inquire what was troubling her. Our heroine answered that no, she had to figure everything out on her own. I thought to myself that it had just happened. The rumors about him were still unfounded, and in fact, everything was fine, or something like that. A little later during dinner, the girl thought that fortunately, they were sitting far from each other. The guests discussed that Vilsberg was tormented by nightmares. Probably the road had a bad effect on him. It would be nice if Risseline were here too. But they say that an illness has raged in their area, but they conveyed that they will arrive for the meeting. The elder brother of the head will act as the representative of this family, since his sister, who is the head, cannot leave the castle due to illness. Then our heroine turned her attention to the young man and saw that he was sitting smiling broadly, after which she thought what to do. She even from this place sees Rick's smile. It seems that her vision has suddenly improved. At the tea party, one of the girls said that she was surprised that there were so many free seats. Another replied that she had not expected there to be so many girls at the conference. Were they all really interested in politics? A third said, "That be that." As it may, she really enjoyed having conversations over tea. At a meeting of aristocrats, it was decided that while the men were talking politics, the women could gather for tea, so they were able to come to the conference too, which opened up more opportunities for them. Then the girls decided that they agreed in this matter. The Duchess of Cardiego showed herself to be a wise woman. Meanwhile, our heroine walked with her friend and thought to herself that Elizabeth was clearly very worried. The guest asked if they could really attend the meeting. Isabel replied that of course they could. Ladies as well as men can share their assumptions for the welfare of the state, so there is no need to be afraid. Suddenly a voice was heard, saying that he was wondering where such a wonderful aroma came from, and it turns out there was a whole garden of beautiful flowers. It was Royan who addressed the Duchess of Cardiego, and said that she was as beautiful today as a young lily. The girl noted to herself that it seemed that the rumors about his sleep problems were not unfounded, as if he had aged 10 years. Every time they see each other, the man compliments her appearance, hints that the lily, the symbol of Vilsburg, represents the goddess Aida, but does not say out loud that he knows the truth about her origin, probably fearing that it will disturb her. Then she replied that she would like to return the compliment, but she felt that lilies were not the best choice for him, which translated means that he looks like he has nothing in common with the throne. Of course, she is only talking about appearance. It would probably be a bit rude to compare a man to a flower. The man coughed and said he was surprised to hear that ladies would be present at the meeting. Since ancient times, male and female duties have been divided, it seems that Cardiego does not know that ladies have long been uninterested in politics. Naturally, he will make sure that his wife never attends such gatherings. Embroidery and collecting outfits are what a self-respecting aristocrat should be interested in. While our heroine was thinking about what kind of nonsense he was talking about, Royan added that he was simply an incorrigible romantic. Isabel replied that it might surprise him, but there wasn't a single woman there who wasn't at least a little bit interested in politics. The question was whether they had the opportunity to show it. Nobody knows what will happen in the future. Maybe she will also want to fully engage in politics. And just as ladies were given the opportunity to attend such a meeting, the day may come when a woman like her will have the right to inherit the throne. After which, she added that she would see her soon at the conference, and went on about her business. Elizabeth immediately said that the man was talking complete nonsense. There was no need to listen to him. Our heroine did not understand what she was talking about. The girls noted that the Duchess probably did not know this, although the topic was well known. They have a collection of absurd Royan statements, for example. A young debutante's corset should be tightened to the maximum. A lady's dress should cover no more than half of her bust. For a married aristocrat staying at home is a virtue. He has plenty of such sayings, even about the flower. Meanwhile, the men discussed that the emperor's condition was deteriorating. They had tried all the treatments, but there was no improvement. He himself must be the most worried because he had no successor. The Vilsburg family has held the throne for 350 years, but now there is no heir. Royan immediately said that although he was not of direct lineage by origin, he tirelessly served the Imperial family. Here was a letter handed over by His Majesty, personally stating that he was present at the meeting on his behalf. The guests immediately started talking about how it couldn't be that a man would make a bastard his heir. How could obsession with close relatives really end like this? What else could one do if there was no potential successor? Cardiego turned to Vilsburg and said that since His Majesty had entrusted him to represent him at this meeting, did this mean that he intended to participate in the election of the next emperor? Isabel thought to herself that translated, this meant that he had no right of succession. Was he really going to take part in the election of the next emperor and fight him for the throne? There was tension in the air. Royan replied that being emperor was a responsibility that could only be assumed by one who had been chosen by the great goddess Aida, and since he belonged to a collateral branch, he did not think he was fit for the role. Counting Vilsburg, there are only 5 families in total who have the right to vote in the election of the emperor. The Cardiego will undoubtedly follow the Rix, and the Vilsburg the Royan. And the heir of Risselin has restrictions that do not allow him to run directly in the elections for emperor. In the end, the choice of emperor will depend on which side the southerners, including this dynasty, take. Suddenly, the butler announced that nobles from the southern lands had just arrived, including a representative of the Ryslin dynasty. A young man appeared in the room and asked for forgiveness for being late, as he had been delayed by unexpected circumstances. He was late in part because of the miasma, but other problems had arisen. The matter could not be delayed. The guy was forced to take care of them first. It is well known that in recent years, animals have begun to appear in Ryslin County that have mutated into demonic beasts under the influence of miasma. However, this year their numbers have increased unusually to the point that the mutated beasts have captured entire areas. And the captured zone is increasing day by day, and at the same time their destructive power is growing. They are throwing all their forces into containing their spread, but the time is approaching when their own forces will no longer be enough. Therefore, they officially request support funds until the cause of the unusual activity of the demonic beasts can be identified and eliminated. Royan immediately intervened and said that the goddess would not want people to die from hunger disease or monsters. There is no need to spare money. It is necessary to provide assistance to those in need. Isabel responded that she agreed that saving people comes first, and that a budget for aid should be created. However, blindly pouring money in could be a problem for Ryslin County, as everyone knows they get their income from agriculture. If they become accustomed to relying more and more on sponsorship and less on farming, even if the miasma problem is solved, there is a chance that by then the farms will have declined. Wolfsburg laughed and replied that the zeal of the Duchess of Cardiego was praiseworthy, but that women were not originally engaged in state affairs. The young man interrupted him and asked Isabel what events she thought needed to be carried out. The girl replied that she had heard that the miasma had not reached the lands around Ryslin Castle. There must be a way to unite people in uninfected lands to establish a common farm. The county has plenty of sunshine and water. The land is fertile if they give preference to fast-maturing crops. Their productivity will increase in the shortest possible time. Fluffy barley, swallow rye, and similar plants are quite suitable for this. After some time, the girl asked if Aida would mind if she continued to appear at public gatherings of this kind. The woman replied that her concern for her god was simply wonderful. She doesn't need to worry about it. Her strength is almost gone, so she can't claim to be a deity. Now, she had better get herself together and keep her ears open for the people heading this way. One of the girls said that she heard that the Duchess of Cardiego had done well at today's meeting, and she was proud of her. She would be glad if their daughters grew up as worthy as she was. Isabel replied that thank you, but she had only made a proposal the implementation of which would be undertaken by truly knowledgeable people. Then the girl said that it would be wonderful if she visited their estate one day, because she would obviously like the hanging gardens, after which she left. Our heroine noted to herself that she had the opportunity to use in practice everything that her sister had taught her. It was as if she had already learned then that this knowledge might come in handy one day. Elizabeth reported that the lady who had just spoken to her was known to be extremely stingy with compliments. It seems that she pleasantly surprised her with her courage and sharp mind. He was right at me at the meeting. Isabel replied that she was lucky the problem of miasmas has recently been a resonant topic that has aroused great interest among everyone. After which, Select asked if the Duchess would go to look at the mutated beast. The girl answered that she would. She hopes that after everyone sees the monster with their own eyes, there will be progress in the miasma issue. Our heroine thought to herself that this was the first time she saw a demonic beast in real life. Then she turned her attention to Rix, who had already managed to change into more comfortable clothes. I immediately thought that this outfit unexpectedly well emphasized the advantages of his body. People were discussing that this beast was the largest of all that were found in their province. If such beasts were roaming, they were afraid to even leave their homes, let alone work in the fields. Its fur was a strange color. Could Cardiego really be involved? Isabel thought to herself that Rix would never allow something like this. It would be stupid to say the least, because Ryslin would definitely have figured it out. The young man explained that the beast was harmless since it had been put to sleep with the help of magic. After which he said that people could see for themselves. Everyone present thought that since the Count said that the beast had been pacified, then everything must be in order and began to come closer. Isabel noticed that the demonic beast's breathing rhythm had suddenly quickened, after which our heroine screamed that something was wrong. Here we had to be careful. Literally, a moment later, the enraged creature burst out of the cage. Suddenly, he stopped in front of Isabel and began to look at her intently. She did not understand what was happening. Her husband immediately materialized next to her and told the girl to close her eyes. After which, the young man dealt with the demonic beast in the blink of an eye with one blow of his sword. Then he turned to the Count and asked, "Didn't he say earlier that everything would be fine since the beast was put to sleep by magic?" While the youth was answering that he definitely should not have woken up, and Yang did not understand what had happened, a servant came running shouting that monsters were heading here from the carriage that had arrived from the southern lands. When the man screamed that he had to run because the creatures were infecting everyone with filth, one of them fell on his face. A huge crowd of demonic beasts was rushing towards the Cardiego estate, and no one knew yet how to stop them. The young man thought to himself that there were too many of them, and they were also spreading the disease. He couldn't cope alone, fighting them off. Rix thought that something was wrong here. All the monsters were heading towards Isabel. Then the young man saw a snake approaching her from behind and screamed loudly. But suddenly the goddess embraced her and said that they needed to grant freedom to the poor lambs. These monsters are ordinary animals that have mutated due to miasma. Perhaps they did not intend to attack people. Gradually, under the influence of our heroine's magic, all the animals returned to their previous form. While Philsberg was unconscious, the dog came up and relieved itself right on his face. The man immediately came to his senses and did not hear how everyone was discussing that it was the blue butterfly with the help of divine power who in one instant cleared them of the disease. Stigmata appeared in the eyes of the Duchess. Is this not the goddess Aida herself? After some time, Yang said that this was probably the reason why Philsberg people had been spying on Cardiego lately. The abilities she demonstrated were probably just the tip of the iceberg. Getting rid of the miasma of so many creatures at once was something else. Is it really true that the disease was dealt with by pure divine power and not by Ricelin's cleansing magic? Once they get it, it will only be a matter of time before the disease disappears from their lands. The wife of Duke Cardiego turned out to be the last direct descendant of the Philsberg dynasty. I wonder if he could ask her how it all turned out this way. Meanwhile, our heroine was thinking about why the goddess was sleeping all day, perhaps because she had spent all her strength on the recent cleansing. Rix didn't come back to the bedroom last night. Kill came in and said he was busy sorting out what happened the night before, but she was still worried. Yesterday was the first time Isabel didn't wish him sweet dreams. Going out into the corridor, the girl met Elizabeth, who asked if everything was all right with her maid. The girl replied that it seemed she needed to rest a little more. She had worked too much and had exhausted all her strength. The special schedule of the Imperial conference was changed. What should they do in the meantime? The friend replied that if the lady did not object, she would like to see the library. Isabel noted that she seemed to love books too. Lizzie replied that she had heard that many precious books were brought there from all over the empire, even those that were very hard to find. When our heroine asked if she wanted to find a certain book, what was it called? Celeste replied that she was happy every night, because everything was described in great detail. There, it was distributed secretly. It turned out that an indirect descendant of Vilsberg had been standing around the corner all this time and eavesdropping. After some time, the guests discussed that it was good that everything went without casualties. If it had not been for the Duchess, something terrible would have happened at the Imperial conference. Royan was the first to faint as soon as the filth spread. I wonder how Isabel managed to cleanse everyone. They don't know much, but didn't the girl receive a blessing from the goddess? Those silver hair and blue eyes, she must be the direct descendant that Vilsberg was so desperately looking for. The man listened to all this and was very nervous that those present were chatting about everything that came into their heads. Buis's voice was heard saying that Royan was probably worried, but it didn't matter. Once they took the girl, the balance of power would change in their favor. The man asked if he was sure about what he had told him earlier. Uncle Rix replied that yes, it was on the bookshelf of the Cardiego heir, and it looked like a ring. If he uses it, he can distort space and hide from the Reapers. He will have the opportunity to talk alone with a woman with a direct bloodline. First, we need to meet the rest is nonsense. Efrix has enough stories in her past that will definitely disgust her. Meanwhile, Isabel asked if Lizzie had told her that this book had a pink cover. The girl replied that yes, it was strange, but according to the inventory that she had been given, it should be on this bookshelf. Our heroine thought that it could be on the successor's shelf, since this Rick's bookshelf could have taken it and put it in the wrong place. But is her husband interested in such a genre? Or did he deliberately hide it together, which only he knows about? Suddenly, her friend called out to her and said that the closet on the other side had changed dramatically. Isabel replied that it was the successor's bookcase. It was only visible to family members. Then why did it appear? When the girls started walking towards him, Royan appeared stopped and began to stare at them. Our heroine said that it was quite unexpected to meet him there. She had not heard that the office was open for visiting. What was the purpose of his visit? The man replied that he was bored while walking. He saw a library and decided to go in. He passionately thirsts for new knowledge, after which he pulled out the very book in a pink cover that his girlfriends were looking for. Then I read the title, Every Night She's Happy, and I was horrified. Buis immediately said that now was an excellent chance to talk to her alone. Let him call upon the divine power of the found ring. The friends realized that something was wrong. Elizabeth screamed for the Duchess to hide behind her back. A moment later, some strange, overwhelming energy appeared around our heroine. And this man, Isabel was outraged that he was even allowing himself to do this. If he came even one step closer to her, she would scream. Royan replied that she must have already felt that she was unable to do this. They were together where time and space were distorted. The girl replied that she would think of a way to resist him. He ignored her warning and approached. Vilsberg replied that he had been rude, but he only had something to say to her, or better yet, to address her as Isabel Vilsberg. Our heroine replied that he pretended not to know about it when he appeared here, but now it seemed to be of the utmost importance to him. The man replied that he had decided that she would be in danger if her origins were revealed in front of everyone. His duty as a representative of the collateral line is to serve the direct descendant, blessed by the goddess Aida herself. The Duchess of Cardiego replied that he seemed to be a little late. Royan replied that all of Vilsberg was waiting for her return so that she could save her faithful brothers and sisters. The girl noted that he spoke as if their lives depended on her answer, and if she refused, they would die. The man replied that this was the bitter truth. Several years ago, as a result of terrible events, all representatives of the direct Vilsberg line were killed. The only direct descendants remaining alive are she and the emperor. Isabel wondered if this was the price to pay for the crisis that befell the state under their rule, why Sister Maria had not told her about it. Then she decided not to dwell on his words and wait for Rick's, after which she said that it seems the situation in the Imperial family is much worse than she assumed. Who would have thought? Royan replied that she was blessed by the goddess, and the main duty of a woman in the Imperial family is to give birth to an heir. Let him go to Vilsberg, give birth to a boy who will become emperor. Only in this way will he be able to save everyone. The girl replied that if she gave birth to a child, it would be quite natural that he would bear the surname Cardiego. But suddenly, the man declared that he was talking about an alliance between them. He was sure that Aida would support his intentions. Isabel screamed, "How can he even think like that about a woman of the same blood as him? He has completely gone crazy." Royan replied that they share holy blood, that is why it must be done. Vilsberg's efforts always paid off, and her birth was not the result of those same efforts. Our heroine muttered that he even dared to mention her mother. Was that really what he wanted? The man told her to go back to Vilsberg and check for herself. This key belonged to the Empress, the late youngest daughter of the current emperor, her mother. Our heroine was confused for a second, but then asked what he was trying to achieve with all this. Royan replied that the things left by Isadora were still kept in the Empress's room in the palace. She could open it with this key. Let Isabel return to her real family. Everyone hopes for her help. The girl hissed that he really thought she would give up the life she had just because she had inherited the Vilsberg blood. The man did not understand what kind of reaction she had, why she had rejected his proposal. Was she really denying her destiny? Her life would become much better than it was now, wouldn't it? Isabel continued that he had imprisoned her, the mistress of the castle, in this strange place, and offered to betray her husband by supporting the Vilsberg family. The man tried to justify himself somehow, but the girl interrupted him and screamed where they all were when she dreamed of a family. And now he stands in front of her, as if nothing had happened. Does he really think that he deserves to be part of her family? The man replied that he understood her anger perfectly well, but let her know that he was doing all this only for her own good. There is no man in the world more terrible and cruel than the Duke of Cardiego. Our heroine was outraged. How dare he insult her husband? Royan grabbed his head and stated that she still didn't know about the dark past of the Efrics. Had she ever wondered why he left his big castle in the capital and moved to the duchy? The girl replied that if there was something she didn't know, she would prefer to hear about it from someone other than him. Vilsberg said that despite her reluctance to listen, there was much he wanted to tell her. For example, that the Duke killed someone, would she continue to brush him off when she heard? But suddenly he fell silent. It turned out that some black hand which appeared out of nowhere grabbed his face. It was Rix who held him back with his magical powers. After which, the young man hissed that apparently Royan wanted to challenge him. A moment later, our heroine noted that this strange barrier had collapsed. The young man continued that all the power of the souls of the afterlife is contained in this brooch, which is on his chest. As someone who was not of his family, he used her power very skillfully. Moreover, it was the power of his late uncle. Suddenly, a black energy flow appeared, which wounded the young man in the side. The Duke of Cardiego immediately understood what was going on and asked if he had touched his ring. The man began to mumble something unintelligible. The young man hissed that he was asking again whether he had touched the ring in the library. The man experienced such great stress that he simply passed out. Rix immediately approached Isabel and asked worriedly if everything was okay with her. The girl replied that everything was fine. Immediately, the servants appeared led by Elizabeth, who ran towards them and asked if everything was okay. Then they looked at Vilsberg, who was lying on the ground, and it turned out that he was so scared that he had wet himself. The butler shouted how he dared to do this in the office of the Duke of Cardiego himself. Rix ordered to call the servant Royan so that he would take him to the room. Bill replied that it was fine and would order him to clean up here. Our heroine took the Duke by the hand and asked what was wrong with his waist. The young man smiled and said that she had been reading so much again early in the morning that her head was filled with thoughts about a man's waist. But when the young man put his hand on his side, he saw that there was blood on it. Suddenly, tears began to flow down Isabel's cheeks, and she said that she could not even imagine that he would be hurt. Then she asked if he was in a lot of pain, and if he needed to hurry to the doctor. The guy replied that he was, and began to pretend that he was losing consciousness. The wards were surprised that this was really the one who continued to fight for 4 days. Despite the hole in the ship, he plays his role very well. Meanwhile, the young man glared at them as if to show that they should react somehow. The butler immediately began to shout about how he must be suffering. Kill began to yell for a doctor to be called here immediately. After some time, the young man noted that he had not received such a big wound for a long time. The boy said that judging by how long it took to heal, it was caused by unusual magic. The guy replied that yes, it was the power of the ring that was hidden in the office. When Kill asked if he wanted to tell his sister about this, Rix asked why it wasn't the most pleasant topic of conversation. The demon said that let the brother remember how he himself wanted to know about everything that concerned Isabel, starting with the dirty book that her sisters caught her reading, and ending with her daily life right down to the list of herbs that she collects. Wouldn't she be just as curious to know the history of the past Duke and Duchess of Cardiego? Wouldn't it be better for both of them to talk about their parents again? Rix immediately had a picture in his mind of his little one being locked in a cage. The parents watched him with a sly grin and said that the Efric's poison was very good. Noticing that the guy's expression had changed, the boy said that, okay, they would leave the question of the Duke and Duchess for now, but wasn't it time to at least dispel the rumors about his male strength? His heart bleeds every time he sees that he has again spent the night on the sofa, not just lay down, but spent the night. The young man hissed at him to get out and simply threw him out of the bathroom. He himself began to think that he wanted his wife to be interested in everything that concerned him, everything except the story about his parents and uncle. The young man does not want to hurt her with this heartbreaking drama. Meanwhile, Kill came to Isabel and said that his elder brother's wound was not healing. Could she go and help him? Hearing that he was now in the bathroom, our heroine immediately rushed to his aid. The kid smiled slyly and said that he was trying to help Rix, so he should hurry up and dispel this rumor already. The Duke recalled that everything was as if in a fog. He could not even remember the faces of his parents, whom he saw every day. The man said that in translation from the ancient language, his name means fruit. He is the fruit of patience. Cardiego, it is necessary to comply. Maybe that's why Efrix never felt cared for. He was always simply watched, probably in order to catch the manifestation of poison in his body, Even a partial release of the power of the afterlife caused him much pain, but he could be content with just that. The smile of approval that was bestowed upon him made him think that he could endure anything in the world, or so it seemed to him. Uncle Buis was the only member of the family who ever held him in his arms. One day, a man gave him a bag and told him to hurry up and treat his parents to tea. He was sure that they would be happy if it was the little boy who served it. Therefore, he did not realize until the very end what was happening, even when right before his eyes, his mother and father began to bleed. The father's gaze showed shock and pain from betrayal, but he was still glad about it and said that now his son had truly become part of the afterlife. Rix then became afraid that his parents would disappear forever, so he sealed their souls in a Cardiego wedding ring. The mother and father drank tea with poison that was extracted from their son's body. Uncle immediately declared that no one would even hug this monster. Now he would never know warmth and love. But the man was deeply mistaken because the boy met Isabel. Warm embraces so soft that you can free yourself from them even with a little effort. The girl was the first to show concern for him. She taught him to feel love and warmth. I wonder what Isabel was thinking. Then wasn't she scared? Weren't his powers terrible? Suddenly, our heroine burst into the bathroom and started running towards him, after which she immediately began asking if everything was okay with him, if it hurt a lot, and the guy was surprised what she was doing there. The girl reported that Kill said that his wound was not healing. Usually everything goes away quickly for him, but this case seems serious. The young man was a little confused, but then replied that in fact he was still in a little pain. Isabel asked if this was a medicinal bath her sister always gave her. These it is good when the herbs float in the water, but the best effect is achieved by rubbing the herbs directly into the affected area. The young man replied that it hurt. He could not move his second hand freely. Maybe she could help him. Our heroine said that it would hurt a little, but let him endure it, after which she began to rub herbs into his wound. When performing healing procedures, concentration is always important, as her sisters taught her. After which I asked him how he felt now. In theory, it shouldn't burn so much anymore. Then Isabel froze and began to examine the body of the young man from which drops of water were flowing. Then she grabbed his face and began to reach out to kiss him, but suddenly realized what she was doing. Therefore, our heroine suddenly stepped back and announced that it was time for her to go. But suddenly, the Duke of Cardiego pulled her sharply towards him and kissed her hard, after which he said that if she was going to do something, then she should definitely see it through to the end. How can she possibly be so shy and plan to break the bed one day? After these words, our heroine was blown away from her husband's bathroom, as if by the wind. After some time, the girl was lying in her bed and thinking that she was constantly replaying the moment with Rix in her head. I wish she could forget it all. Then she remembered that the guy had given her a book, but she objected that it was not the one she had lent him earlier. The young man said that he had lost it, but let her see what he had brought her in return. That edition was called Broken Beds, so if you use the knowledge you've gained properly, everything can work out. After which she realized what she was even thinking about. It was Rix. Why did he even start talking about the bed? Meanwhile, her husband was watching her strange behavior. Then the young man said that she might suffocate if she continued to sleep like that. The girl asked from under the blanket how his wound was. The guy answered that everything had already passed, but Isabel objected that he was lying. Cardiego replied that when his wife shows him attention and care, he immediately feels better. If she doesn't believe it, she can check it herself. Our heroine pulled her hand out from under the blanket and tried to feel where he was. The Duke took her hand and placed it on his waist, and Isabel noted to herself that his skin was so soft, smooth, and elastic. After which, she decided that he really seemed to be okay, and wished him good night. Rix lay down next to her and said that the wound was still sore, so he would sleep here tonight. Our heroine looked out and objected that he had just said that everything had already passed. Then, after thinking for a bit, she said, "Okay, the Cardiego castle still belongs to him. Let him do what he wants." She thought to herself that it was somehow strange why she suddenly felt uncomfortable around Rix. Then she asked him if he knew what it was like to be comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time. The guy clarified that it's like when a person feels warm, but at the same time cold or something like that. The girl turned to him and replied that, yes, that was pretty much how she felt now. She thought to herself that in that room, there were things that kept the memory of her mother who comforted her in infancy. Even if there were only one thing left in the whole world that her hands had touched, that would be enough for her to feel as if she had found her roots again. Then, in the library, she had nothing to answer to Royan's words. If Rix had not been in her life, she would have immediately gone to Vilsburg and fallen into an endless quagmire. But Isabel managed to resist the temptation, but before she really thought that she would not find a place to put down these roots. The young man is her quiet refuge, next to whom she feels very calm. After some time, the young man waited until his wife fell asleep and began to get ready to go somewhere, after which he came into Vilsburg's room and called his faithful assistant to him. The boy immediately asked if he needed to read his memories. The youth replied that yes, after that he could absorb them. The kid replied that it was even better this way. He was completely satisfied with everything. Then he reported that Royan showed his sister a strange key. It seemed to be somehow connected with the Vilsburg palace. Noticing Isabel's doubts, he tried with all his might to make her return to the castle. The girl told him to stop talking nonsense. She seemed to be worried her face looked sad since he showed her that key. Rix muttered that he would personally strangle him right now, but for now he had to hold back. It is not known what precautions he has prepared in case his life is in danger. After which he said that he wanted Isabel to never know about the previous empress or the incestuous marriage, let the will of the monarch reach eternal darkness. After which he thought that he hoped that one day she would see only beautiful dreams. By the time the goddess awakens from her sleep, the people who have contracted the filth will also come to their senses. Everyone was convinced that the guests present would not have any health problems. In view of recent events, they have established a fairly tight meeting schedule. On the issue of the Rieslin filth, everyone ultimately agreed that assistance should be provided at the state level. And finally, a dinner was held designed to brighten up the discussion of all these issues. Royan looked depressed, but otherwise he secretly used Cartiego's wedding ring. Caught Rix, he even wet himself. But our heroine did not understand why Yang was drilling her with his intent gaze. He suddenly said that he thought the meeting would be delayed because of the schedule, but it flew by as if in an instant, and now the Last Supper was already over. The girl thanked him for coming to their estate. The guy replied that it was not worth it. The visit to the duchy was important for him, because the young man saw hope for himself. His lordship has acknowledged the importance of the problem of filth and demonic beasts, and will soon pay a visit to the Rieslin estate. They would be extremely grateful if Lady Isabel would also come with the Duke and help cleanse their lands of filth. Our heroine replied that she would be glad to help, but at the moment it is difficult for her to make a decision. The young man replied that of course, but he hoped for her positive answer, after which he stared at her again. Isabel couldn't resist saying that he was looking at her in such a way that she was starting to think that there was something bad in her steak. The guy apologized and said that when he saw her up close, he was completely enchanted. The girl ignored this and said that he should also try the steak as soon as possible. Taking a bite? Our heroine thought to herself that it was different from those usually served, had a slightly spicy taste, which was to be expected. This is Cartiego's steak. It is the best. Yan noted to himself that everything was fine with her, which meant that she definitely had the ability to purify because he collected the poison of the mutated beast and added it to this steak. He eagerly awaits the manifestation of her hidden power. The longer he looks, the more he yearns to get it. After some time, when everyone began to leave, our heroine noted that the meeting was finally over. Kill said that the Vilsburg carts left first is the emperor really in critical condition. But he checked the life expectancy. The situation does not seem so depressing. The girl was surprised that he could really see how much time a person had left to live. Plus, it seemed he had grown up. The baby replied that he had eaten eyeballs, which are good for growth, or rather a strengthening agent, after which he realized that now was not the time for this. Today he decided to try on another role, and this role was that of Cupid. After all, bad rumors about the young man's virility also damaged his reputation. After which, he asked what kind of man she saw his older brother as. Our heroine thought for a moment and replied that this was the man who touched her heart. The kid continued to press her and say, that isn't her brother cool. Even for him, a man, he is simply incredible. Isabel said that it would be better to talk about something else. After all, the Vilsburg crew was now driving to the gates. Kill interrupted her and asked, what was the point of talking about people who would soon die? It was better to talk about sexual Rix. The girl asked in surprise, in what sense will die? What does it mean? The kid remembered that the owner had said that under no circumstances should he tell her. After which, he tried to wriggle out of it and replied that it was nothing special, they would all die when the time came. Meanwhile, the coachman announced that in a while they would pass the gate. It might shake a little, but the man thought to himself that they were finally leaving this hellish duchy. Isn't it enough to have blue eyes and silver hair? Why is it blood that decides the outcome? Is this girl really so stuck up just because she is a direct descendant? What's so problematic about just giving birth to a child? It is already clear that neither the position of the Empress nor the honor of the Imperial family interests her, and she also does not want to hear about the Duke's past. But as soon as Royan mentioned Isadora Vilsberg, she immediately began to doubt. Suddenly the carriage braked sharply, and the man, unable to hold on, flew forward.